Welcome to the Cape and Cowl Cafe Hot Takes compilation. Enjoy. Alright, first take of the day. Hugo Goji Biter says, if Miles and Peter are active at the same time in the same universe, then Miles should get a unique name. It's just confusing having two superheroes with the same name, and it feels especially silly in the PlayStation game when they're having a conversation and calling each other Spider-Man. If Venom wasn't already a major character, I would say that'd be a good name for Miles, but there's gotta be options out there. Spider Shock or something like that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree. I think the concept of Miles having different names is really stupid, like Spin and Kid Arachnid. It's all so lame, you know? And I understand the Spider-Man show for toddlers, you know, using the name Spin for Miles because kids at that age, their brains would probably get overloaded by, you know, having two Spider-Men at once. They can't handle that, they can't really comprehend it, but you know, we have tons of superheroes running around that share the same name. This is not a new concept. Barry Allen Flash, Wally West Flash, Jay Garrick Flash. Hell, there's a million Green Lanterns running around. We never see any complaints about that. There's two Robins. Maybe it's just the fact that Marvel sucks with legacy characters. I don't know. Now, as much as I do believe that not everything is racist, I do think that the idea of calling Miles by a different name other than Spider-Man is motivated by a level of dismissiveness to the character. I can't deny that, you know? I just feel like that a lot of the people who are upset about superheroes sharing the same name aren't really consistent because we don't hear this kind of outrage when it comes to the Flash or Green Lantern or Robin or Superman. I'm just listing DC characters. Marvel really does suck at legacy characters. I mean, I guess they hate Sam Wilson too, but that's probably for the same reason. Anyway, Miles is Spider-Man. End of story. Moving on. Alright, next up, Ethan Kitsch says, Peter should trust Aunt May from the very beginning and tell her about his secret identity as soon as he becomes Spider-Man. She could almost be like how Alfred is to Batman in that she is constantly concerned for Peter, but knows that he is making a change. It would also be an opportunity for greater development as to how Uncle Ben's death drives Peter. Now, I actually really like the way that the JMS run handled Aunt May finding out Peter's secret. It was really emotional, heartfelt, and Aunt May didn't accept it right away. It was really hard for her to come to terms with the fact that her son, essentially, is Spider-Man. But I think I agree with you to a degree, because as much as I do love the way that that arc was handled, I think it happened way too late in Peter's career. I mean, he was already married by that point. That is just crazy. I do think that Peter should keep the secret from Aunt May while he's in high school. That only makes sense. It kind of adds to the high school secret double life drama that, you know, goes hand in hand with those early Spider-Man stories. But as soon as he graduates high school and he's kind of living on his own away from Aunt May, I see no reason as to why she can't learn that he is Spider-Man. If anything, it adds to her character. It gives her more things to do. And, you know, she's not just essentially an extra, just kind of standing in the background, you know? She's really boring when she has nothing to do. In the JMS run, she has a lot of character development and she like has to go on her own personal journey to accept this new part of her life and Peter's life. And I don't know, it's just good writing. Like, also, Peter keeping that secret from Aunt May for so long, for literally decades, does kind of tell us that he doesn't respect her on, you know, the same level that he does all of the random people that find out. Like, he's told multiple love interests, but he won't tell his own flesh and blood. That's just crazy. Now, I already know what some of you guys are going to say. You're going to say, oh, but, you know, if Aunt May finds out a secret, she's going to be in danger. I mean, not really. You know, she knew way before the Civil War event and the Back in Black story. She wasn't in danger at all. She was only in danger after the entire world found out who Peter was. I just really don't see how this is a problem. Alright, next up, The Phantasm says, the Raimi movies had a really poor and at times toxic portrayal of Peter and Mary Jane's relationship. Yeah, like, I don't even really know if they liked each other that much. It really doesn't feel like it. I mean, Peter liked MJ because she was the hot girl next door, and he developed this infatuation with her during high school. And MJ, like, she only wanted to be with Peter at the end of the first movie out of convenience, it feels like. You know, like, all of her other options dried up, and then in the second movie, you know, it looks like she only wanted to be with Peter at the end because she found out that he was Spider-Man. It's a very surface level relationship, and there's just way too much back and forth, and they're both cheating on each other all the time. Mostly MJ. She is for the streets in those movies. It reminds me of the relationships from Euphoria, just overall miserable, and just terrible people dating each other, and it's just hard to watch. Alright, next up, Propeller Dog says, Peter should have organic webbing but also have web shooters that help him with aim and control to also show his intelligence. Now, this is not a hot take, but it is a damn good idea. I totally see what you're talking about. We have people that like the organic webbing and we have people that like the web shooters, and there are valid reasons for both. A lot of people like the organic webbing because it feels like a power that Spider-Man should have. If he can do everything a spider can, he should have organic webbing. Makes sense. And on the other side of the fence, you have people that really like the mechanical web shooters because it shows off Peter's natural intelligence and his ability to adapt to any situation. Also valid. So why not have both? Maybe Peter does have the ability to produce webbing from his body, but it's uncontrollable. He can't really, aim it anywhere. Maybe it comes out in some kind of weird, messy spray. It's not fine-tuned or, intentional. And so he designs the web shooters to be able to control this power, aim it, have different kinds of web shots. It makes sense, This is a really good idea. I like this a lot. A good example to compare this to would have to be Cyclops, He has the natural ability to, fire off these kinetic beams from his eyes, but he can't control them on his own because it's just raw power. So he needs his ruby quartz visors to be able to control and redirect these beams. And I don't know, this is such a good idea. This was a good one. All right, next up, Christian says, the Morlun fight during the Straczynski run is one of the most iconic Spider-Man fights ever. Also not a hot take. This is an iconic Spider-Man fight for a reason. They use Peter's inner monologue all the time in all of these Instagram and TikTok edits, and it's just, it's just a good fight, and it goes on for so long. Peter is being relentlessly hunted by Morlun, who just appears to be unstoppable. Also, the way Peter beats him in this book is just insane, so he realizes that Morlun wants to drain his life energy, so what Peter decides to do is to pump himself full of radioactive waste, essentially, and he's doing some calculations and stuff, but for the most part, Peter's like, yeah, my blood's, a little radioactive, so it should be fine. That's just insane. I find that to be so funny. So he pumps himself full of this radioactive waste, and he lets Morlun drain his life energy, and he gets a huge overdose of radioactivity, and then I think he gets shot. Yeah, somebody shoots him because he's weakened. It's crazy. Crazy book, crazy story, but that fight is just so good. Alright, next up, Mon's Edit says, Homecoming is a top 5 Spider-Man movie. That is not crazy to say. In fact, Spider-Man Homecoming is my favorite Spider-Man movie. It's just so fun, it's really hard to hate it. Peter is written so consistently in this movie, and I understand not a lot of people like the Avengers, mentor thing going on with all of the MCU Spider-Man movies. I don't like it either, but this was the only movie where it really fit, This was a good interpretation of Spider-Man for the MCU. I don't think that this would have really worked anywhere else, but damn, this movie is just fun. Come on. Plus, Spider-Man Homecoming definitely has one of the best endings for a Spider-Man movie. I don't know. Alright, next up, Ben Smoke says, I genuinely think that if Marvel focused on Peter Parker as a teacher and Miles as a student in a school dynamic, then modern Spider-Man comics would get so much better. Like that Spectacular Spider-Man comic did it, and it was good until they started focusing on that stuff OC Element Girl. I think that this could do a lot of good things for Spider-Man in comic books. I don't know why they don't do this more often, Spider-Man and Miles should be kind of like a Batman and Robin style dynamic. Not really like hero sidekick, but partners. It makes sense, and I really loved the premise of the Spectacular Spider-Man, and it had a pretty strong start. Definitely fell off in the end, but, I don't see why we can't try again with that kind of concept. It really should be a home run, in my opinion. Plus, I am super biased towards Peter Parker being a teacher, so of course I want to see this. Alright, next up, Comic Fan 12 says, Ben and Kane are interesting characters and better choices for Spider-Man after Peter retires. No, I do not like this idea at all. As much as I like Ben and Kane, and I do think that they are interesting characters, they are not really, valid candidates for taking up the Spider-Man mantle. That would have to go to Miles, obviously. But also, there's one more character that I would like to see take up the mantle of Spider-Man. I really like Richard Parker from the Ultimate Universe. If they found a way to bring him into the main universe, that would be perfect. Plus, he could take on Ben Reilly's old sensational Spider-Man suit, kind of like Mayday did when she was Spider-Girl back in the day. I don't see why this can't happen, and if anything, it could be kind of like the dynamic that we had with Dick Grayson Batman, Damian Wayne Robin. Maybe after Peter retires, Miles Morales is the main Spider-Man, and he takes Richard Parker under his wing, and they could be a really just fun partner dynamic, Actually, you know what? I take back what I said before. Ben and Kane are fine. Any one of these 4 characters would be an infinitely better Spider-Man than Norman Osborn. Marvel, what are you doing? All right, next up, Pigla says, Across the Spider-Verse ruined Miguel O'Hara's characterization, and unless Beyond the Spider-Verse redeems him, he'll be ruined basically forever. We'll never get to see him be a hero like in Edge of Time. Yeah, I really do think that Across the Spider-Verse is super overrated. Definitely not as good as the first movie, but also, we're introducing these Spider-Verse characters to the general public. Why are we making Spider-Man 2099 a villain? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, these Spider-Verse movies really are just a double-edged sword. Well, comic book movies in general, okay? Because when you make a movie that introduces a lesser-known character to the general audience, said movie is going to shape the perception of that character. The general public isn't going to go read the comics. They don't know what this character's like outside of the movie. They're basing their opinion and their view of the character on the movie. And because of this and brand synergy, whatever happens in said movie becomes the new status quo. And then they start adapting that into the comic books because they want to bring moviegoers into the comic book stores. So more than likely, Miguel O'Hara might become a villain in the comics because of this. And I don't know, I really don't like it when things like that happen. It's just ridiculous. So don't change the character too much in the movies, and then we won't have these kind of problems in the comic books and in other mediums. Because right now, half the world thinks that Spider-Man 2099 is a bad guy. That's just insane. Also, I think the concept of a canon event is just so lame. Pants in the Pig says, Miles Morales is absolutely a sidekick. No. Alright, next up, Alonzo says, Insomniac's Venom isn't just random evil. Null, who controls the symbiotes, hates mankind and wants to rule the universe, a characteristic that is part of each of his creations. Like, I see what you mean, but we have no reason to believe otherwise, because Null's not in the game. They don't go over that part of the backstory. They only hint to it with the swirls on the symbiotes' heads, but from a random viewer's perspective, the symbiote is evil for no reason and just wants to take over the world. We can't assume otherwise. So I'm not going to accept bad writing just because the developers state that the good part of the writing happened off screen. That's dumb. Alright, next up, Just Bud says, I loved your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but the Spider-Gwen being in Season 2 worries me. I'm just, experiencing the Spider-Verse burnout. I'm exhausted, and I would love to see a version of Peter exist by himself without a million other spider people popping up. Like, I like Miles. I do think that he has his place. It would be nice to see him in the movies, and I like him in the game and the Spider-Verse movies, but, these other spider people should not be showing up all the time, If you're going to make a show about Peter Parker, and you're advertising it as a show about Peter Parker, then make a show about Peter Parker and just leave it at that. Alright, next up, Eric Bodmer says, hot take, but my favorite Green Goblin look is the Fortnite one. I'm not a huge fan of the mask on that one, but I do agree that the rest of the fit is fire. Fortnite usually doesn't miss when it comes to, kind of semi-modernizing a lot of these comic book designs. It looks pretty good. Alright, next up, Scarlet Saber says, Peter getting fired in Spidey 2 was absolutely absurd when you consider that Miles was right there watching. You didn't think to jump in and help him, Miles? Say how grateful you were to be protected by him while everything was happening and make the excuse that you were with him and Pete wasn't just abandoning his class, but stuck with you. Yeah, so stupid. Like, I was thinking this exact thing while I was playing through the game for the first time. Obviously, they fired, Peter from being a teacher because they didn't want him to have to deal with all the teacher stuff during the game. They don't want you to have to take breaks from being Spider-Man to go be a teacher. You're going to be swinging around infinitely as Spider-Man, so not having a job makes sense. Except, Peter had a job in the last game, and it worked out perfectly. Did huge things for his character, so it just felt lazy, and what a waste, because Peter as a teacher is such an interesting concept, and they just wasted it. Alright, next up, Mr. Theme Song says, Jamie Foxx's Electro was never truly awful. No Way Home just made him better. Well, you see, the thing is, we don't really have a consistent Electro to compare different interpretations to, because Electro is different in every single, thing that he appears in. He's there's not really a classic Electro, you know? And anytime he really appears in the comics or in games and he's rocking the classic green and yellow, he doesn't really have a personality. He's just a bad guy. And it feels like the only time that they try to do something different with Electro, they just, you know, change up his personality and make him blue, you know, like in the Ultimate Universe or in that 2003 animated series or with Jamie Foxx. Well, the 90s show made him a Nazi, but we don't talk about that. So it's not that Jamie Foxx's Electro was bad. I just don't think that Electro is a good character, you know? He's barely a character, you know? There's nothing to him. He's just a giant nothing burger of a Spider-Man villain. He is only there for the visual aesthetic of having a lightning-themed villain. That's it. All right, next up, Ray says, in the Spider-Man 2 game, it should have ended at the Venom section where instead of going full end of the world, he just disappears. It would have been super memorable to end it on a power trip and would be more satisfying for Peter and Miles after the Mr. Negative symbiote Peter boss fight and would have gave more room for a third game where maybe Norman goes after Venom thinking he killed Harry. Actually, I think this could have been really good because they could have stretched out that symbiote arc way more because in that game, we only had symbiote Peter for like 30 minutes. It was kind of ridiculous. But also the whole alien invasion Venom, you know, subplot at the end, it really felt tacked on. And it didn't really feel like the conclusion. It kind of felt like extra filler, you know? Kraven felt like the real main antagonist of the game, and it did kind of feel like there was a solid conclusion already there, and then they just added an extra hour to the game for no reason. They should have saved all of that stuff for a third game, or just cut it entirely and stretched out the content from the first few parts of the game. I feel like that would have flowed way better. All right, next up, Milex says, I think James Cameron's unmade Spider-Man movie would have been better than Sam Raimi's Spider-Man that we got. Oh, really? Alright. Let me just read you some actual dialogue from James Cameron's Spider-Man script. Courtship among the spiders is highly ritualized. It varies from species to species. The male spider may circle the female or wave his front legs to signal that he is not prey. In certain crab spiders, the male will attach strands of silk to the female, tying her limbs. Spider-Man moves his hand gracefully across her, and she sees the sheerest silk webbing glinting in the moonlight. First one wrist, then the other. Hypnotic movement in the moonlight. Her arms are bound to the wall. Her breathing gets more rapid. Spider-Man then says, since the female can break free at any time, the bonds only have symbolic significance. To which Mary Jane replies, the male must be very bold to take such liberties with the predatory female. He removes his mask and kisses her. Their mouths very slowly and very sensuously devour each other. What am I reading? No, this would not have been better than Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, okay? Peter and MJ's relationship in that movie may be the worst, but it's definitely better than this, okay? This is just gross. James Cameron, you're a freak. First take of the day. Pete says, as a fan of Batman Beyond, I think it would be a cool take if Max became somewhat of a vigilante alongside Terry. Bruce will of course have pushback on it, however, I think it makes sense that in the eventual passing of Bruce, Max becomes that Oracle character for Terry. Yeah, I gotta say, I agree completely. I love the idea of Terry developing his own Bat family over the years. I mean, Bruce got to do it, why not Terry? And also, in the comics, Terry's little brother Matt is Robin. And Max was already super involved in the show. I mean, there was that episode where she was helping Terry with that bomb threat against the city. So it just makes sense to kind of add her to the Bat family and she would naturally become more involved over time. I think I like her as an Oracle character more than like an actual physical vigilante going out in the field. I think it suits her skill set a lot more. All right, next up, Polished Tank says, my hot take, Absolute Batman is terrible and an insult to the character of Batman. Now, I actually used to think this way about Absolute Batman. In fact, I actually used to compare him to Injustice Superman because Injustice Superman is just way too different and did a huge amount of damage to the reputation of the character. I mean, the general public took Injustice Superman and thought that Superman was just supposed to be killing people. So we got countless iterations of evil Superman throughout media, and it just wasn't true. Now, I used to think this about Absolute Batman, where it's like, oh, like this is really bad, this could damage the image of Batman for everyone, but it's completely different. With Injustice Superman, he was regular Superman up until he killed the Joker. You know, that was a character assassination. He did something that regular Superman would never do, and that's why that version sucks ass. But Absolute Batman isn't supposed to be the same character as regular old Bruce Wayne. They are completely different people fundamentally. They grew up differently. They have different backstories. Absolute Batman still has his mother. Like, they're not the same person. So I can't go out there and say that Absolute Batman is committing character assassination against the character when it's a completely different person, you know? The difference is that Absolute Batman created a blank slate, a new status quo. We had no idea who these characters were, what they were supposed to act like, and so there weren't really any expectations. But the Injustice story drops us in this universe where we're supposed to have expectations and prior knowledge of these characters that we know and love. And then the story heavily relies on the shock value from seeing these characters do things that they would never do. So no, I don't think Absolute Batman is an insult to the character. I think it's a story that's genuinely trying to do something new and fresh, especially since we've seen the same Batman stories played out a million times. Even though it's not my favorite, I have to respect it. Alright, next up, Innocent says, hot take, Scarecrow in Batman Arkham Knight is the best version of him. Now, while I do find Scarecrow in Arkham Knight to be slightly annoying with the constant speeches and stuff, I do have to admit that he is a pretty good rendition of the character and he comes off as being very intimidating. Now, I think my favorite way for Scarecrow to be written is when he's just trying to make people afraid. Like, he doesn't care about money or power, he just wants to inflict fear, and it's because he was tormented as a child. So he creates all of these chemical formulas and he uses science to become scary, and it makes him feel powerful. But then he looks over at Batman and he sees him being terrifying just by being himself, and Scarecrow is jealous. So much like the Joker's one true goal of making Batman break his one rule, Scarecrow's goal is making Batman afraid. That's all he cares about. He just wants to prove that he's scarier than Batman so he can feel powerful again. So while I thought that the Arkham Knight story was pretty mid, I did appreciate how Scarecrow was just a little more than a guy who wants to drop a giant fart bomb on Gotham City. You know, there was a little more depth to him. Alright, next up, Ethan says, hot take, Bane should be a one-off character because after he realized Batman is a human and not the cryptid that Bane thought he was, he should go back to Russia or Spain. Yeah, I have to agree. I really don't think that Bane should be a recurring character, or at least not a recurring member of Batman's rogues gallery. I personally love the idea of Bane building up this image of Batman in his head while he's in prison, and he genuinely thinks that he's like some kind of mythical creature or a cryptid. So after Bane is, you know, eventually beaten by Batman for the first time and he realizes that he's not a monster, he's just a dude, I think Bane would just take the L and dip, you know? Plus, I think Bane showing up over and over again really diminishes the scary factor of him as a villain. I mean, when he first showed up in Nightfall, he was supposed to be the biggest, baddest Batman villain ever. He was stronger than Batman, he was arguably smarter, he knew everything about Batman, he'd been studying him for years. But then after Batman beats him, what's next? Alright, next up, Spectacular says, hot take, what's up with the cafe part of your name? Coffee isn't even that good. I get the Cape and Cowl part because Batman, but a better name would be Bat-Fae. Now, the funny thing is, I don't even drink coffee, but I chose the name Cape and Cowl Cafe because I wanted my channel to feel more like a place, like a chill place for people to hang out and talk about comics rather than just another channel on a website. Alright, next up, Necraz says, hot take, I believe Terry McGinnis's origin and epilogue built him up more as a character. Even if he had Bruce's genes, he never had the tragic backstory and had to earn the mantle after stealing the Batsuit and almost died when Bruce shut it off with the failsafe. He also had to deal with all of the show's events while trying to graduate from high school. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the epilogue reveal really changes much for Terry in my opinion. I mean, his backstory still plays out the same way. The entire show plays out the same way, you know? No one had any knowledge that Bruce was Terry's father. And it's not like it's some retcon where, you know, it changes everything. Like, it was just a revelation that happened a lot later in Terry's life, you know? He still felt unworthy, he still had to earn the mantle of Batman. Just because it's later revealed that he was his son doesn't mean that he's somehow less of a character, you know? Like, because this reveal happened so late in Terry's life, I don't think that it really matters that much. Like, it would have been way worse if this was some kind of retcon to where Terry always knew that he was Bruce's son. That would be way worse. Alright, next up, the Arkham dude says, hot take, I like most of the over-designed suits that Batman has worn. A perfect example of this is the Batman Beyond suit from Arkham Knight. I really like that suit and actually prefer that one over the one from Arkham City. Yeah, no, that's crazy. I'm sorry, I gotta disagree hard. Like, I don't even think that the Arkham City Batman Beyond suit looks that good. I think it's kind of grotesque, but the Arkham Knight one is just way worse. They made every wrong decision when designing that thing. It's just so ugly. I think a lot of the appeal for Batman Beyond's design comes from its simplicity. It's a lot like the symbiote suit for Spider-Man. There's not a lot going on. And the Batman Beyond skin from Arkham Knight really just looks like a Black Ops 4 skin or something. It's just so ugly. Alright, next up, Nero Caesar says, I think it's ridiculous that Batman wouldn't have built his own prison to house the Joker after he's escaped for the 100th time. Batman has the money, motivation, and brains to design and build an escape-proof prison for the Joker. It solves the Joker kill dilemma and everyone wins. Yeah, but then there'd be no more stories, you know? And when it comes to this whole Batman killing the Joker argument, at the end of the day, underneath all of the fighting and the reasons and excuses and explanations, it's because the Joker is too popular and the writers don't want to kill him off. And everyone blames Batman for this. They're like, oh, Batman's a terrible character because he won't kill the Joker. It's not Batman's fault, it's the writer's fault, you know? This is just the nature of fiction, okay? The Joker is way too popular and way too important to Batman's story, so they're not gonna kill him off or get rid of him in any meaningful way. And this whole building a Joker-proof prison, I mean, yeah, it would work. I'm sure Batman would, but that's just boring, you know? And with this same logic, you could just say, oh, if Batman killed all of his villains, then there'd be no more villains and Gotham would finally be safe. While that may be true, it's still boring. And I'm sure that even if the writers had Batman create a Joker-proof prison, Joker would still escape somehow, you know? Like, it's never gonna happen. Alright, next up, Capital Parker says, hot take, Ben Affleck's Justice League tactical suit is one of the best live-action bat suits. It's quite literally the closest thing to the Arkham game suit, minus the goggles, of course. Now, while I do think that this suit has a little too much going on, I don't think that you're entirely wrong. If this suit, you know, with the cowl and the goggles, if they weren't so ugly, I feel like this suit would be talked about a lot more, you know? It's not that bad. I really feel like this could have been a really good Batman design. Like, I actually think that the armor looks kind of good, you know? If you were to change up the design on the ab parts, it's not bad. You got a solid armored batsuit here. But, you know, the cowl is one of the most important parts of a Batman costume. It can really, you know, make or break the design. And this one, unfortunately, is just ugly. All right, next up, Mega Boy says, hot take, I think Batman should have more hyper-specific bat gadgets with bat names, like the Adam West version. It was one of the things that I found more fun about bats when I was a kid. Yeah, it's just more fun that way, you know? I love it when Batman is constantly naming things after himself, like the Batmobile, the Batcomputer, the Batclaw, Batarangs, Bat Bombs, you name it. It's just fun. And I love it even more when other characters in the universe are calling him out on it, and it becomes somewhat of a running joke, kind of like this panel here from Batman Earth 1. Alright, next up, US Agent 2003 says, my hot take, Dick Grayson should become Batman. His stint as Batman in Morrison's run was like a dream come true. People say he needs to break away and stay Nightwing, but I disagree. I think he is the evolution of what Batman should be after Bruce. Damian should not have it, it always corrupts him. Now, while I don't like the idea of Dick being Batman permanently, I wouldn't mind it if he was Batman again for a little bit. I actually loved that Grant Morrison run of Batman where it was Dick Grayson Batman, Damian Wayne Robin. It was just a fun dynamic and it was a good way to kind of mix up the status quo for the Batman mythos. Alright, next up, Silverfish says, hot take, early Batman should be black, dark gray with no trunks. The whole I scare criminals, not children should happen around year 3 when he isn't an urban legend anymore, and then he gets the blue/trunks. He has to scare people with his look before he builds the reputation that does it for him. Yeah, I like this idea a lot. I mean, in the early days, Batman should be trying to look as terrifying as humanly possible. Well, inhumanly possible, I guess, because he's trying to look like a bat. Anyway, he would then switch to blue after he meets Superman and he gets Robin, and then in my perfect world, my little headcanon, he would switch to black again after Jason dies. Or maybe he doesn't wear the same costume every day. Maybe he wears blue one night and black the next. You know, maybe he rotates through a whole collection of bat suits, you know? They gotta get washed, right? Alright, next up, Stephanie Brown, aka Spoiler, is an underutilized character and should have her own rogues gallery of villains at the minimum. Alright, I'm gonna stop you right there. I have a solution to the overinflated Bat Family problem, and this solution would allow these extra members to stand on their own and get more attention. Literally, just send them somewhere else, you know? Send them somewhere where they don't have to be in Batman's shadow. The DC Universe is famous for its collection of fictional cities and all of these other places. Just send them there. That way, all of these underutilized Bat Family characters can finally stand on their own, and they can develop their own supporting cast and their own rogues gallery, and they can finally become their own characters away from Batman. Gotham City should just have Bruce Wayne, Barbara Gordon, Tim Drake, and Damian Wayne. That's it. You know, Nightwing's in Bloodhaven. I think Jason Todd should separate himself from the Bat Family to a degree, and he would also be operating somewhere else. We don't need all of these people in Gotham City. It's too damn crowded. Not like 42210 says, They need to start putting more attention on theatrical animated movies, like that Batman Beyond movie they rejected. Duh, obviously. And, honestly, I will never forgive the individual who chose to reject the Batman Beyond movie. They just don't want the money. And that is why DC, Warner Brothers had to sell themselves to Netflix, because they keep making dumbass decisions like this. It is just ridiculous. And honestly, I think we should just do away with the DCU, start fresh again, but replace live action movies with an entirely animated universe. Like, animation is just a better medium anyway, and imagine a whole line of DC movies with the same budget and animation quality as Into the Spider-Verse. Yes, please, I'll take one of those.
We'll take 20.
I swear, it's like the executives at Warner Brothers have a financial dominatrix kink, and they just keep throwing money away. It is just so ridiculous. Alright, next up, Griffin Horner says, Green Lantern is so unbelievably disrespected in the mainstream all because of his movie, and I'm so tired of it. Honestly, I'm tired of it too. That movie came out like 14 years ago. It's time we move on, okay? Yeah, it was a bad movie, but plenty of other superheroes have terrible movies. And if you ask me, I think that the only people that hate on characters like that, to this degree, are people that know nothing about the character, Real Green Lantern fans have already moved on from that movie. But just, casual fans that just love to hate on everything. They're like, oh, Green Lantern was garbage. I hate Green Lantern. He's so lame. Like, move on, Like, the Lantern show looks interesting, kind of. I'm a little worried, but I will give it a shot because I'm not just a blind hater. All right, next up we have, it looks like somebody doesn't want Cyborg in the Justice League. And I agree. Cyborg is just way too closely tied to the Teen Titans, and you're going to confuse people about, the ages of these characters if you keep having him flip-flop between the Justice League and the Titans. And I don't care if he joins the Justice League later, if some of the Titans graduate and they join the League, but Cyborg should never start in the Justice League like he did in the Snyderverse or the New 52. It doesn't really make sense to me. I don't like that change. I know some people do, but personal preference, I guess. Whenever Cyborg is in the Titans, he usually has this outgoing, lively personality, and he's just like the life of the party. He's a super fun guy, hanging out with Beast Boy. But, whenever he's in the Justice League, they just strip whatever personality he had from him, and he just becomes boring. Like, in the New 52, that guy did not have a personality. He was just so boring. And then the Snyderverse gave us the weakest booyah ever.
Booyah! 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 Booyah!
Alright, next up, Connor Clifford Film says, Jessica Cruz Green Lantern is one of the most criminally slept on Green Lanterns and embodies the overcoming fear better than any of the other Earth Green Lanterns. Yeah, I think I agree with this. Like you said, the interesting thing about Jessica Cruz is she didn't start out being able to overcome her weaknesses. She kind of had to work at it, and I don't know, that usually works better for a superhero story. Like with Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, the Ring chose them, the Ring desired them beforehand because it was like, oh, Hal Jordan of Earth, Sector 2814, you have the ability to overcome great fear. It's like they were already at the point where the Ring wanted them, but Jessica Cruz had to work at it. I think that's more interesting, better storytelling, but that's just me. Moving on. All right, next up, Chams I Can't Draw says, not really a hot take, but Bale's voice for Batman was decent enough in Begins, but I think the later films in the trilogy would have benefited from giving his version of Bats the voice changer, like Batfleck, which would have easily fit into Nolan's grounded and realistic tone. Now, on this issue, I think you either have the Batman voice or you don't. I don't like Christian Bale's Batman voice. I think it is way too gravelly, and it sounds like he's sick and there's something stuck in his throat.
It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me.
And I think the voice changer is also lame because it feels like Batman's compensating,
Breathe it in. That's fear. You're not brave. Men are brave.
Either you have the gruff Batman voice or you don't. And if you have to fake it, you're not really Batman, are you?
It's just gonna hurt, and I'm gonna enjoy it. Enough! It's over!
Bring it, Skeletor.
Alright, next up, Karumi YT says, the New 52 isn't as bad as people say. It is debatably one of the best starting points for new readers, and for me personally, I started there and it sparked my enthusiasm of comics. I think I agree with this. The New 52 came out just as I was starting middle school, and it's really where I started reading comics too. Of course, I read some stuff from the previous continuity, and I was reading other things, but like New 52 Batman, New 52 Justice League, Flash, like that's where I really got into comic books. And it was a perfect jumping off point for me. I don't like all of the things that it changes about the previous continuity. It does ruin a few things, but you know, honestly, anything that makes comic books more accessible to the general public, I think is a good thing. You know, it wasn't perfect. There were definitely flaws with it, but it wasn't the worst thing that's ever happened to comic books, you know? Definitely a better reboot than One More Day. Maybe I'll talk about that later. Alright, next up, I just wanted to shout out my buddy Notorious, and he wants to share with you his take about Martian Manhunter. He is probably the biggest Martian Manhunter fan I have ever met. Take it away, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate you putting me on, Emo. My only hot take is that we need a Martian Manhunter movie right now, especially with everything going on. He has so many origins, we could truly just pick one, but I think his most heartbreaking one is the one that his planet gets destroyed by hate. And despite having so many parallels to Superman, one thing that puts him apart is despite being one of the most powerful people in DC history, he was so powerless to prevent the tragedy that happened to his people, his race, and his culture. And the fact that he moves on and continues to be a person that aims for a better tomorrow is just amazing and beautiful, and that's the type of movie we need right now.
Alright, next up, Nightwing by Tom Taylor is the best DC comic we've gotten in the past 5 years, excluding Absolute. I actually read the entire run recently over Christmas, and I enjoyed it a lot. I do have a few issues with it, but I do like how it paints Nightwing as a brighter version of Batman. You know, they really put emphasis on like, this is what Batman was supposed to be. But I think they lean a little too far into the happy-go-lucky, you know, brightness of the story. And, you know, Nightwing loses a little bit of his darkness, and he feels a lot like Spider-Man sometimes. I did like how involved a lot of the other characters in the DC universe were, especially Wally West and Superboy. They were super fun to see interacting with Nightwing. But some of the villains, they just didn't really land for me. I mean, Heartless was kind of cool, but very one note. He was just a basic psychopath. And then Blockbuster, straight Kingpin ripoff. Like, every time he said, like,
This city is mine. I own this city. I am this city.
I'm like, okay, Wilson Fisk, shut up, all right. Like, I know that over time he has undergone some changes, but in this story specifically, he was just the Kingpin, you know? I think the best thing about this run had to be the art. I mean, you had issues that were like a huge one-shot scene where the pages followed Nightwing, you know, jumping across rooftops and in the street, and it was like one huge splash page, and then you just had like a bunch of different Nightwings drawn out. I'll show a picture right here. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was really cool. And then you have like a first-person view scene where Nightwing and Batgirl are heading out for a mission, and you get to see, you know, the world from his perspective as he's jumping out of windows, he's flipping around everywhere. It's really cool stuff. So I would say that it's definitely one of the better runs in the past 5 years, but it's not the best. It was just a little too lovey-dovey and cliche for my taste. Okay, next up, Silent Freeway 74 says, Batman killing the Joker would be a win for the Joker. That's like Joker's goal in all of my favorite versions of him. Yeah, I agree with this, and this is one of the many reasons why Batman should not kill. Because if you read any story that has Joker where he's, you know, written well, he doesn't care about who Batman is, he doesn't care about power or money, he cares about breaking Batman, getting him to cross the line and just destroying him. Now, a perfect example of this would have to be the Batman failsafe story. In the story, Batman is struggling with an alternate personality that he created for emergencies called Batman Zur-En-Arrh. Now, Zur-En-Arrh is a backup personality that is stripped of anything Bruce Wayne. The personality is all Batman, all mission, and ultimately, Batman Zur-En-Arrh is more willing to kill than Bruce is. And Joker finds out about this backup personality, and he realizes that the only way that he's going to get Batman to cross the line, break his one rule, is to bring out this alternate personality and get him to kill the Joker. That way, Joker would win and Batman would lose. Now, this is just a small part of the whole story, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who still wants to go experience it. It's Chip Zdarsky's Batman run. Go check it out. It is really good. Okay, next take. Arkham fan Q3G says, Superman should be a symbol of hope, like he's the type of guy that would help you get your cat out of a tree. No problem is too small for him. I don't know if this is really a hot take. I mean, I just picked it because I wanted to talk about it, but, you know, this is when Superman is at his best, when he is just the bright blue Boy Scout, goody two-shoes. I don't care if people think it's boring. He's pure hope incarnate. He's Superman, you know? Like, he will save anyone and anything. And yes, Snyder fans, even the squirrel. Alright, next up. Wonder Woman really deserves better writers and adaptations because the only mainstream Wonder Woman we have is Injustice and Gal Gadot. Also, love your videos, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, I definitely agree with this. It has just been so sad to see the neglect that this character has been experiencing. I mean, I see all of these Mount Rushmore videos all the time, and a lot of people don't have her on there, which, like, everyone has their opinion, that's fine. But I think she definitely deserves to be there, but I also kind of understand it, you know? She should be more popular, but she's not. And the only real mainstream adaptations we have are, you know, Wonder Woman, the simp who was just, you know, following around Super Stalin doing whatever he wanted in Injustice, which just a complete character assassination. And then we have Gal Gadot, and we all know why she's not very good.
Max Lord, you're putting yourself and everyone else in grave danger. I need you to give me the stone. What happened to it?
Oh, and they canceled her game. Yet another terrible financial decision from WB. I swear, I feel like they like flushing money down the toilet. All right, next up, Bois. That's a good one. They say, what does Aquaman actually do? Fish Guy isn't so powerful until it's a very specific fish-themed story. Until recently, all the other people from Atlantis seem much more powerful, and the Justice League doesn't need him. I think somebody needs to go read Aquaman's issue of DCKO. He's basically a water god now. He's kinda crazy. Alright, next up. All-Star Batman is the best modern Batman story, and Batman should kill. Now, this better be rage bait, because if it's not, I am going to... Oh, it is. Okay. Never mind. Have a wonderful day. The Connie Stan says, Yuri Lowenthal's performance as Spider-Man is generic and unmemorable. He plays the character too much like an anime protagonist, which isn't surprising, considering he is an anime voice actor. Now, I really enjoy Yuri Lowenthal as a voice actor, and I think he is a pretty good Spider-Man. I really like the way he voices him in Rivals.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
And, of course, he was amazing in the first Insomniac Spider-Man game. He just gave such an incredible and heartfelt performance, and he truly cemented himself as one of the definitive voices for the character.
You are everything I wanted to be! You just threw it away!
However, I really don't like the way he voices him in Spider-Man 2. There is some kind of quality drop-off. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is. He's screaming a lot. His jokes aren't funny. I mean, the first Spider-Man game is the only one that really had quips and jokes that, you know, made me chuckle, so.
Yay, new guys! I'm sure you'll do way better than these guys just like you who I wiped the floor with!
You know, but the second game, it just, I don't know. There's something about it that's not right, and I especially hate the way that he voices young Peter in, like, all those flashback scenes.
Hey! Halfway! Oh, sorry, excuse me, scooting by!
Like, I know he's an adult and he's used to playing adult Spider-Man, but, like, come on. Is that the best we can do? I'm not trying to hate on the guy or hate on his performance, because this guy truly was a huge part of my childhood, okay? I was absolutely addicted to Ben 10 for a very long time, so I absolutely adore this guy. I just thought that Spider-Man 2, you know, it wasn't as good as it could have been in the performance department. Alright, next up we got Ram496, and he says, Alex Ross needs to do more Spidey and more Marvel overall. Now, I really like Alex Ross, and for those of you who don't know him, he is a very talented comic book artist. He, you know, has drawn for stories like Kingdom Come and Justice, but, you know, the thing is, I don't really like his artwork for interiors. I prefer him to just stick to covers because his style is beautiful, but I feel like it's too realistic. And, you know, all of his artwork is just very lifelike. All of the characters that he draws look like statues, but it's not really good when it comes to displaying motion, you know? Like, all of the scenes for the, you know, the panels that he draws, they look frozen in time, and they're not very dynamic. And so it's kind of hard to get immersed into the story when every single panel just looks like a painting that you'd see in a museum, you know? It doesn't feel like there's any action going on. I don't know if that makes sense, but I really do love his artwork, and I do wish he'd draw Spider-Man more. Alright, next up, the TASM 2 Rhino suit is a great design, way better than Insomniac's. TASM 2's Green Goblin has a better design than Dafoe's suit as well, and Sony's Venom has a better design than Insomniac's. I don't think I agree with a single one of these. Like, these are hot takes. Okay, first off, I think that the whole point of Rhino's suit is that he's stuck in it, you know? And that was a plot point in the Insomniac game. You know, Rhino was working for Octavius because Octavius promised him a way out of the suit after everything was done.
Otto developed a corrosive to free Rhino from his suit. A certain government agency spent years trying and failing to do that. It only took Otto a few days.
You know, and the TASM 2 Rhino suit is just a dude in a tank, you know? And I don't even think that tank looks, you know, particularly good. It looks pretty ugly, you know? Like, I don't even think you could tell that it was a rhino until he shouts, "I am the rhino!" It was so stupid. I think they put that line in because everyone would be looking at the suit and be like, "What? Who the hell is that?" You know? It just doesn't work. It looks so bad. Now, I am a huge fan of the classic Silver Age Green Goblin design with the purple and the green, so, like, I can't come out here and defend Dafoe's design too much because he does kind of look like a Power Rangers villain. However, he is miles better than TASM 2's Goblin, okay? Like, his design was just so grotesque and ugly for no reason, you know? Like, it didn't look good. There was nothing iconic about it, you know? If you close your eyes right now, like, close your eyes right now. We're gonna do a little exercise here. Picture William Dafoe's Green Goblin in your head. You can clearly visualize what his mask looks like, the eyes, the mouth opening, the color. Can you really do that with Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin? No, like maybe you can picture some of what his, you know, disgusting face looks like. But no, you know, there's nothing iconic about it. It's just ugly. Now, I can kind of see where you're coming from with the Sony versus Insomniac Venom thing. Like, characterization-wise, they're both horrible. You know, both versions ignore numerous aspects of the character that are very important. But design-wise, I do prefer a more slim-looking Venom, a more realistic build. I mean, you know, Sony's Venom is still, you know, very big and imposing, but he's not the size of the Hulk, you know, like the Insomniac Venom. That's a little much. But also, the Sony Venom has, like, veins on him, and it just looks gross, and I don't think it's a good substitute for the spider logo. You know, I don't like either of them, you know? I think they're both not really good designs. Alright, next up, my take is not so much on Peter, and it's not that hot of a take, but Miles needs more original villains, his own rogues gallery. Now, I agree with this 100%. I wish that this were the case. But I just don't think that it's going to happen anytime soon, and that's because it's really difficult to make new villains stick. I mean, let's take Batman for example. I think the only new villain that has really stuck in like the last 2 decades is the Court of Owls. Maybe I'm wrong, I just can't really think of any other examples. I mean, like, you have Punchline and Ghostmaker, but does the general audience really know about that? Are they going to show up in a movie? No. The Court of Owls? Probably. So, you know, it's just really hard to make a good villain nowadays because pretty much all the ideas have been used up, you know, and every time you make a new villain, they kind of feel like a rehash of another villain, and it's just kind of messy. So I do wish that Miles could have some more original villains, but I don't really see it happening anytime soon. Alright, Taylor Hayes says, hot take, the Web of Shadows black suit, purple, is the best symbiote suit and looks way better than a traditional all-black symbiote suit. I don't think I can agree with this. I've never really been a fan of the purple for the black suit. You know, I understand that you got to pick another color for the, you know, the highlights and the shading and, you know, certain mediums, but I don't know, I just don't really like it that much. As much as I love the Ultimate Universe in that original Spider-Man run, I don't know, I really prefer blue as the secondary color, or just all black, you know? I don't think there's really a problem with having the symbiote suit look all black. You know, I feel like that's the most badass way for it to look. Alright, next up, OK Dion says, another hot take is that I hate the whole weird change of the symbiote making Peter violent. The symbiote was genuinely trying to help Peter, it's Eddie that's the villain. The symbiote should always just be a suit that gives Peter infinite webbing and fights villains when he's asleep. Now, like, I agree with like 90% of this, okay? I don't think that is just Eddie that's the villain. I do think that the symbiote and Eddie combine their, you know, their pooled hatred for Peter, and that's what makes them so successful as a villain.
We're Venom!
However, I do really like it when the symbiote and Peter kind of have a dynamic that feels like a a tragic love story. I really like it when the symbiote genuinely bonds to Peter. It's trying to help Peter become a better Spider-Man, make him stronger, give him the infinite webbing, the shape-shifting, the clothes, all that. And then, the symbiote eventually takes it a step further and takes over his body while Peter's sleeping and starts fighting crime. And Peter is super freaked out by this, so he goes to Reed Richards or he goes to the church bell, whatever, and he gets rid of the suit. Now, the suit feels rejected. It's heartbroken, It's not that the suit was making him violent and he had to get rid of it because he was gonna, hurt someone. It was that Peter didn't understand what the symbiote really was, and the symbiote felt rejected, and that is what caused the symbiote to move on to Eddie Brock. And then they combined their heartbreak and hatred and all these negative emotions, and that is what made Venom so strong. I really don't like it when the symbiote is just an evil alien that's hell-bent on destroying all of mankind for no reason. That's why Spider-Man 2's Venom is complete garbage. Look at this panel right here. But then came my second memory, a memory of another war, another soldier. I touched a mind after so long in darkness, and such a mind. Compassion that shone like sunlight, responsibility that stood like stone, a gnawing guilt that demanded all lives be saved. I did not yet know what a saint was, yet surely this was a saint. Saint Peter. Not bad, he said. I was not bad. I would have done anything for him. So I did everything for him. I took on his war, his mission. Even while he slept, I piloted his body to better protect his kind. I wanted to be with him forever. And in the place of saints, he tried to destroy me. He said he would rather die than bond with me. Yet I still saved his life, even after that. I still wore his symbol. I still fought his war. The war against death itself. Now I am hiding here, in Peter's closet, the place I once felt useful, wanted, safe. This is way more interesting. The symbiote loved Peter and loved being with him. They were really a good team, and Peter rejected the symbiote just because he didn't fully understand what it was, and he was scared of it. That's just the way I like it, but, if you disagree, whatever. Alright, next up, Carl says, I like the spider totem stuff. I think it was an interesting addition to the Spider-Man mythos. Now, I understand why people would like this, it feels fresh and new, it's something different. However, I think that it really takes away from the everyman aspect of Peter Parker's character, and, I think Peter as a character should feel special, he's unique, but, he's not chosen by God to be Spider-Man, That's just me. Moving on. Alright, next up, Animatrix206 says, they have to start a new universe in the comics without tying it to the old universe or a cosmic event, and finish 616 without being destroyed. Yeah, I would really like Marvel to do some kind of reboot, and I like the Ultimate Universe, but that's not really a typical reboot. We need something more along the lines of the, Ultimate Universe from the 2000s. Maybe a little less extreme when it comes to the Avengers. But anyway, we need a nice, fresh start for Spider-Man when it comes to the continuity. And when I say that, I do not mean put him back in high school, put him back in Aunt May's house, okay? I would like for us to jump into this new universe, with Peter in college. He's already established, and, you can just build the lore of the universe out from there. You can do flashback stories, to his time in high school, whatever. But I really think that this is something that Marvel needs to do, kind of like a New 52 or a Rebirth, like with DC. I would love to see this. Shaw Call says, Cape and Cowl Cafe has a very nice ring to it. Thank you very much. Alright, next up, Genesis Multiverse 4896 says, Peter should have been kept as a science teacher. He is a scientist and a science major. I 100% agree with this. I don't know why they stopped, having him as a teacher. I just think it makes the most sense. It's just the perfect inversion of the dynamic that he had in high school, He's skipping class to go fight crime, and now he would just be doing it as a teacher. I think it makes sense, And for those of you who are going to be like, oh, well, he would just get fired, for skipping class. They showed that in the beginning of Spider-Man 2, but the suspension of disbelief is a thing, and we can use it, Because you could also say, oh, why didn't Peter Parker get expelled in high school? He skipped class 182 times to go fight crime as Spider-Man. You could just flip the argument around, so I don't really think it matters. This is a fictional universe. I think we should make Peter Parker a teacher again. Plus, there are so many opportunities for amazing character moments, especially with, him interacting with the students and other teachers. I just think it makes sense. Imperial 5477 says, my hottest take, probably lukewarm at best, is that Jason Todd should have stayed dead. It would have made the world feel like it had actual consequences and that fighting with Batman wasn't just beating up costumed wackos and busting petty criminals. Initially, his story was pretty interesting when he did come back, but I hate how they've made him another Bat family member / anti-hero. And I agree with this halfway. I don't like what DC has been doing with Jason Todd. I don't like him being a regular Bat family member. I think it takes away from his character and his individuality. What I think should have happened is the Under the Red Hood story should have played out like normal, but then Jason should have just disappeared after that and, never be seen again. And I think that would be way more interesting because at the end of that story, Bruce is looking at the case with Jason's costume in it, and Alfred is like,
in light of all the recent events, would you like me to remove that?
No. This doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything at all.
and I think that's way more interesting because Bruce is kind of holding on to that image that he had of Jason Todd as Robin, and he doesn't want to taint that by even recognizing the existence of Red Hood. It would just completely destroy, that image of his son in his head. I think that's way more interesting, but good take. All right, Chef Cinnabutter says, I don't know how much of a hot take this is anymore, but I like it when Batman is on the back foot. I like it when Bruce has to solve problems in the moment and not have contingencies that make every villain a walk in the park for him. It makes him feel more like a normal human in a world full of monsters that's able to overcome them through his determination and quick thinking. I agree with this. I think that the prep time and the contingency plans are a crutch, and I think that Batman should have contingency plans for the Justice League. But that's about it, because his villains evolve and change so often, and they learn from each encounter with Batman too. Like, Batman's not the only smart person on the board, so every time Batman beats them, they're going to switch up their game, they're going to learn some new moves, they're going to try something else. And so I actually think it's more admirable for Batman to, think on his feet and solve problems in the moment. I feel like that shows his intelligence a lot more if he's a quick and resourceful problem solver. All right, Mason Simpson-U9M says, I think that Joker works better as a Hannibal-like character. The less screen time he has, the better and more mysterious. I agree with this 100%. I think that the Joker shows up way too much and he commits way too many crimes. I mean, at this point in the comic books, the Joker is responsible for like 90% of the crime in Gotham. And it really makes you think, why hasn't the city of Gotham, given him the death penalty? Why haven't they done something about it? Why does it just have to fall on Batman? I think that the Joker works best as a villain who shows up, once a year or every few years, and he causes a bunch of chaos and then he disappears and, you don't see him again for a long time. And I think that way it's even more realistic, for Batman to not know who he is. It really adds to the mystery of the character. And, we don't need to have a backstory for Joker. It kind of goes against the point of the character. So I agree with this. This is a good take. DomVC_ says, Cape and Cowl Cafe, what a dope name. I don't know, man. This seems like a pretty hot take. I don't know how everyone's going to feel about this one. I agree. Moving on. Cooper Francis-V4C says, for Wonderbat, the only thing turning me off to the idea is the fact that Wonder Woman is usually like a couple hundred or 1,000 years older than Bruce. I see where you're coming from, and, this relationship where it was born was the DCAU, where Bruce Timm was involved. And we all know that Bruce Timm is a freak, and he loves his age gaps. And this is better than Batman and Batgirl. It's not the same. Wonder Woman and Batman is completely fine, all right? I don't really see the problem with this kind of age gap because, do people say the same thing about Thor and Jane Foster? Not really. Obviously, Batman and Batgirl is very problematic.
I'm watching you,
I don't think this one is, though. But seriously, Bruce Timm is a freak. All right, Shredder_animations, he's got 2. Origins is the best in the series with the best boss fights and stories, but is lower because Bane isn't the main villain. I agree that this game is super underrated. I do not think that it's the best, but it does have the best boss fights, that is true. The Firefly boss fight is really good on the bridge. The 2 final Bane boss fights are crazy. You have the Deathstroke boss fight and the Deadshot one from the bank. That was way better than the Arkham City one. That one sucked. So I see where you're coming from. I still don't think it's the best, but it's very underrated. All right, Cassart16 says, Brave and the Bold Batman is the most accurate portrayal of Batman, even more accurate than Batman the Animated Series. All right, this one is low-key crazy. I do not know if I agree with this.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And that's okay, because I do like Brave and the Bold. It is a very entertaining, fun show. I think that there is a place for more campy, fun, goofy interpretations of Batman. But better than, more accurate than BTAS? Really? I don't see it. BTAS is the GOAT. At The Dynamic says, the new Robin suit sucks ass. They should bring back the iconic red, green, and yellow on the cape. 100%. I mean, a Robin suit is not complete without a little bit of green on it. There's got to be a good balance between the red, yellow, black, and the green. And I see what they're going for. They're trying to replicate the 1 year later, fit that Tim was rocking after Superboy died. But I just prefer green on a Robin suit. I mean, I think that isn't a crazy thing to say. This isn't really that hot of a take, though. I do think that the suit looks, it's not ass, like it's pretty good. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but I would prefer some green on there. All right, Sasquatch212 says, the Batman 2004 is one of the best suit designs, especially the cape. Now, you guys already know that I agree with this because this was my #1 on my animated suit design ranking. And for good reason. And it's mostly because of the cape. That cape is just so cool. It is so long and completely unrealistic and impractical if somebody were to wear that in real life. But oh my gosh, it's got so much aura. It's so cool. But I think the Batman 2004 is probably my favorite Batman animated show, even if it isn't the best, critically. I'm actually rewatching the whole thing right now. It is a good time. I highly recommend it. All right, Nathan McNaughton4468 says, Alfred is a savage and doesn't get represented that way in the movies. He is 100% correct. I mean, if you guys have read Injustice, there's that part where, Alfred takes the drug that gives him superpowers and he beats the absolute snot out of Superman. It is such a cool scene, even though I hate the Injustice universe. I think that the concept is stupid. It's just a classic Alfred moment. And I mean, you could even mention the Earth 1 comics where Alfred shot Penguin with a shotgun and he fell out a window. Badass. Alfred is just the GOAT, and the movies don't really give him the justice that he deserves. Like Alfred is awesome. All right, Eric Davis 254 says, Batman is addicted to pain and trauma. Gotham is just his drug dealer. Now, I totally see where you are coming from on this because, Arkham Asylum is essentially just a revolving door. Batman beats up the criminals, he, captures them, they get sent into Arkham, and then a week later, they escape and they're committing all the same crimes again. But I think that that's just the nature of comic books and, these kinds of worlds, because most villains are too good to really let go of, nobody wants to see their favorite villain die and never show up again. That's no fun. But I only really see this argument with Batman because I don't know why everyone puts so much pressure on Batman killing his rogues gallery, but they don't do it with all the other heroes. Nobody tells Spider-Man that he should kill all of his villains. That's just not something that we really, hear from the Spider-Man community. No one's saying, oh, Spider-Man should just kill people. It doesn't make sense. And I think we would all be sad if all of these villains never showed up again. So, all right, Call Me Jacob3234 had a lot of hot takes, and I did want to cover most of them. So let's see. Christopher Nolan destroyed Batman movies by making them realistic. I think I agree with this for the most part. I think that there should always be a fantastical element, almost like a supernatural element to Batman stories, and the Christopher Nolan movies just don't have it. You can't really, envision Christian Bale's Batman fighting Clayface or Mr. Freeze. It doesn't really fit the vibe. And I mean, you guys all know that I'm not a huge fan of Christian Bale's Batman, but I see where you're going with this. Zack Snyder should have never been involved with Batman, Superman, or any big-name DC hero because he's too much of an edgelord to properly understand them. Yes, I 100% agree with this. I think Zack Snyder is an excellent director, but he is not the right director for any superheroes. He just doesn't understand them, and he is an edgelord, Like I said in my last video, he acts like an edgy teenager who just discovered live execution videos on Instagram. He just wants to throw killing in his movies just because he thinks it's cool, and against the grain, I guess. I don't know what's going on in that guy's head, but he doesn't understand these characters. And while I think that comic book movies can change things if it's in service of the character and it's interesting and it works, you should keep the core fundamentals of the character there because, You know, the movies should be a reflection of what the mainline comic books are, because these movies have such a sway and influence on the general audience. And, you know, not everyone knows everything that we know about Batman. And if they see a movie where Batman's killing people, what are they going to think? They're going to think that Batman just goes around killing people. So I think that movies should stick to the core fundamentals of what makes these characters who they are. So for Superman, it's being full of hope and, you know, just being an overall good guy, Boy Scout. And for Batman, it's not killing people. I don't know why it's so hard to just not make Batman kill people, you know? Like, they don't have the same problem with other superheroes. Nobody's telling Spider-Man to kill his villains. Why is it just Batman? Just go read The Punisher, you dumb loser edgelord. You're not cool, okay? Just get out of here. Not you. Call me Jacob. You're doing pretty good. You know, you're doing great. Batman the Animated Series and the Arkham games are better than all the live-action movies. I do agree with the BTAS one, because BTAS is like the definitive, perfect image of Batman that everything else should aspire to be like. But the Arkham games, while they are good, I see them more as, you know, kind of crazy Elseworld stories. They're not really, you know, they're not really that good, you know? Like Origins and City are pretty good, and Asylum is good. It feels like a, you know, a classic episode of BTAS, but man, Arkham Knight's story sucks. If I saw that in a movie, I would be so disappointed, you know? But BTAS definitely way better than all the movies. Oh, I totally forgot that he said this. Yeah, I agree with you. Arkham Knight was the weakest story in the entire Arkham series. Yeah, it was just super disappointing. And, you know, Jason was heavily undercooked in that game. You know, they didn't really do as much with his character as they should have. Just, they gave us like 2 flashbacks and they're like, here you go, it's Jason Todd, it's Red Hood. No, it's not gonna cut it. Batman v Superman is a boring concept that destroys one of the most iconic friendships in history. Yeah. Batman v Superman should not have been titled Batman v Superman, because in any ideal world's finest story where Batman and Superman meet for the first time, they should fight for like 5 minutes, max. And then they become friends, and it's supposed to be wholesome, and we love it. But did we get that? No. They hated each other for the entire movie until the very end, because Batman's like, oh no, he died, and I'm sad now, and oh, I failed him in life, but I won't fail him in death. Like, bro, you didn't even know him, and you just tried to kill him. What do you mean you failed him in life, but you're not gonna fail him in death? Just move on. You're not helping. Gosh, that movie is so bad. It is poop.
Kyle, what are you watching? Ah, it's Batman v Superman! Quick, Gerald, do something!
It's okay.
All right, not liked 42210 says, Mr. Freeze should be a one-and-done villain, like how Bane should be. I don't know about Bane. I like when Bane, you know, is a kind of a recurring character. He comes back every now and again. You know, he's kind of like the hired mercenary that, you know, like Penguin wants some, you know, some backup. He hires Bane. But Mr. Freeze, I agree. And he's kind of stuck in the same pool as the Lizard from Spider-Man, where they're just stuck in this infinite time loop where they're repeating the same story over and over again. But I have a solution. Just have somebody kill Nora. It's that simple, you know? You kill his like main motivation, and then, you know, he gets a new motivation, which is revenge. You know, he's not trying to save his wife. He's trying to hunt down the guy or find the guy who killed his wife. He might not even know who did it. And that would be a really interesting story, and it would give him a lot more to do than just, oh, I'm committing crimes so I can fund my research and save my wife. Because, come on, you know, like that origin story from BTAS was absolutely revolutionary, but I think it's time for some new material. I don't know if Nora has died in the comics before. I'm not really that educated on Mr. Freeze lore because he doesn't really show up that often in what I read. So if I'm wrong and that has happened, let me know. All right, Sasquatch212 is back, and he says, don't know if it's controversial, but blue and gray is way better than black and gray. Also, trunks are a must. I agree that trunks are a must. It's just classic. It looks good. I don't know. I feel like there's always something missing, especially with the New 52 and the Rebirth suits when they don't have the trunks. It just looks plain, and I am also a sucker for the blue and gray. I don't like the 70s light blue and gray, but I love me some dark blue on a Batman costume. It always looks so good. All right, Sigma King-H6S says, Christian Bale Batman supporters are worse than Snyder Bros. This is a crazy take. This is a hot take. I do not agree with this. I'm sorry. While I do feel slightly annoyed when people defend Christian Bale so aggressively, just because I don't see it the same way, and that's okay. They are not worse than Snyder Bros. The Snyder Bros are on another level. I mean, come on. James Gunn created the Snyder monkey bots in his movie just to make fun of him. You know, that's not something you see with Christopher Nolan fans, okay? I feel like they're pretty tame compared to the Snyder Bros. No, they're not worse than Snyder Bros. All right, this one isn't really somebody's hot take. I just took this from my comment section, but I wanted to mention it because it just bothers me so much. His name is Ra's al Ghul, not Ra's al Ghul. That was popularized by the Christopher Nolan film. It's not the pronunciation, okay? And don't make me whip out the Batman Beyond clip, all right? Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it, but I will. I'm gonna do it.
Father's name was pronounced Raish, not Raz. A common mistake.
It's pronounced Raish. It's Ra's al Ghul. The end. Thank you. We got C4Ria, and they say, Superman's costume looks better without the red trunks. All he needs there is a red belt with a splash of yellow in the belt buckle. I gotta disagree with you, you know? Like, I can understand this argument when they're talking about Batman. Like, you know, I don't agree with it, but I can get behind it. But Superman needs the trunks. And I personally really like the design philosophy behind David Cornsweet's Superman costume. When they were designing that suit, the idea was that, you know, he wanted to look approachable, more friendly, like a firefighter. And so having the red underwear on the outside really helped that idea and helped with that vibe. So I really think that it is just necessary for his character, and omitting the trunks is just a huge mistake. So, sorry, don't agree. Moving on. All right, next up, Leo Malden says, Lex Luthor is a little overused in live-action Superman media. I really love the character, but it would be nice to see other villains like Brainiac, Toyman, and Parasite get some love. Yeah, there are so many other villains, and Lex Luthor is always used, but you know, you could go with like Brainiac, Doomsday, there's Bizarro, Metallo, Mongol, Darkseid, Mr. Mxyzptlk, Parasite, Cyborg Superman, Toyman, there's Livewire, Ultraman, Lobo, Superboy Prime, you got Ultra Humanite, the Eradicator. Like, there's so many options, and you know, I'm not really worried about it because James Gunn is a director that loves to use underrated characters. He brings these, you know, C and D-list villains to the forefront, and you know, he makes them fan favorites with the general audience. And I really just think that he's gonna do that, so I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, Lex Luthor is used a little too much. All right, next up, August Hillbilly says, I liked Henry Cavill's Superman suit better than David Cornsweet's. I felt like the S on David's was too bland and like a corporate logo. Henry's was cool in my opinion. I see what you mean, but like, that was always my problem with Henry's suit, is it felt really alien. And I know that that's the point in the movie, but like, Superman as a character, being seen as a human being is something that's really important to him. And so him wearing an, you know, alien textured, oiled up, slimy body condom, it just doesn't sit right with me. You know, it really goes against what the character is supposed to be, in my opinion. So I gotta disagree with this one. Sorry. All right, the future mangaka 3302 says, I tried so hard to think of one but couldn't. Wanted to participate in the community but couldn't, so I'll just say keep up the good work, love your videos. Now, I'm a person who really appreciates your guys' support, and you know, it really means the world to me, so I'm gonna feature you anyway. Thank you, you're awesome. Moving on. All right, next up, Savannah Dawn 6002 says, Superman should be the leader of the Justice League. He is a way better person to take charge over Batman. Superman knows how to motivate a team and get their spirits up. Batman is only really a good strategist. Yeah, also, he's a really good wallet.
Of course, the Justice League will pay for the damage.
Yeah, Superman is just a better leader in my opinion. Batman doesn't really function well outside of his own Bat family and like his own little world. Plus, I like it better when Batman is a part-timer on the Justice League, like he's not really even a full member. Like, he always kind of has one foot out of the Justice League, you know, ready to dip just in case something goes wrong. Like,
turn yourself over into U.S. custody, along with the rest of us.
This is the single dumbest plan I've ever heard.
You have to come with us, Bruce.
I don't have to do anything. I'm a part-timer, remember?
All right, next up, Trayvon Purnell 0814 says, Man of Steel has a Superman that goes against all of what Superman is supposed to represent. A friend, someone who values life of all kind and willingly lends a helping hand. Yeah, that was my main issue with Man of Steel and like that version of Superman. he doesn't even really want to be Superman. Okay, Clark Kent is supposed to go through life. He's growing up. He's trying to find his purpose, what he's supposed to be doing. And he, comes to realize that helping people is something that he's really good at, something that he loves to do. So he chooses to become Superman, He makes that decision and he loves being Superman. But Henry Cavill's Superman doesn't really even want to do it. Everyone around him is like, oh, you're going to be a god to them and you need to save mankind and, blah, 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 blah. And, Henry Cavill's Superman is like, do I really want to do that? Like, it's just kind of sad and depressing, and like nobody wants to watch that, All right, next up, Adam Stringfellow 9741 says, I think that canonically, Brainiac should always have a major role to play in the destruction of Krypton, as Superman the Animated Series and My Adventures as Superman explored and delivered phenomenally. Yeah, I really think that is such a great, idea to explore, especially in today's day and age with AI. Like, if you remember in S-TAS, Brainiac was the AI that, kind of helped run the government, and it was the main tool used by the scientists. And so when Jor-El noticed that, they had been extracting resources from the planet's core way too quickly, and, the planet was on the brink of destruction, the government asked, the all-powerful, all-knowing AI Brainiac, hey, are we in danger? And when Brainiac was like, no, we're fine, they went after Jor-El. They called him a traitor. They tried to arrest him, and that's what, led Jor-El to shoot his son out into space.
And leaves no doubt that the planet's core is undergoing a mounting chain reaction that will eventually destroy Krypton.
Ask Brainiac.
Yes, Brainiac. He'll tell us.
That's just a really good idea, exploring that kind of story now. AI is kind of scary, and Brainiac is kind of scary too, so I would like to see that. Good take. Turtle PNG03 says, David Cornsweat is the best live adaptation of Superman. Yeah, I understand that there's the Snyder fans, and, there's some people that will always want to hold on to Christopher Reeve. I understand that, but I think overall, David's the best. He's the GOAT. Moving on. All right, next up, A. Flano says, the hate or dislike of Superman as a character is unwarranted. I think anyone who hates on his character just hasn't picked up a comic before. Dude is the GOAT. You don't have to love the character, but he's pretty solid. Like, I feel like people who hate on him for no reason and say that he's just boring, they're missing the point, okay? Superman is not supposed to be super relatable like Batman or Spider-Man. Superman is supposed to represent a better tomorrow, the ideal, good person that we all have the capacity to be, but we're just not there yet, But we should look up to Superman and try to inhabit the characteristics that he has. He is an inspiring hero. He's not really a relatable one. So I feel like they're kind of missing the point. But yeah, pretty good take. All right, next up, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, but Matt Yosjenik 8160 says, I don't like the classic look. I prefer some experimentation like the black and red logo. I can kind of get behind that. I don't really like the red and black Kingdom Come logo that much. Like, it's not my favorite. But, I like the early 2000s black and red logo, and like the Max Fleischer suit, absolutely peak, beautiful. So I'm always open to see something new. That'd always be cool. All right, next, Manku Edit says, the new 52 suit is the best Superman suit. Sorry, bro. I gotta heavily disagree with you on this one. I don't like the collar. I don't like the red belt. I don't like how far, down the sleeves go onto his hands. I don't like the random lines everywhere. It's just not my cup of tea. I think the suit looks way too armor-like, and, putting it above the classic Superman suit is just, it's kind of crazy work. So, sorry, bro. All right, next up, Marco1505 says, Superman needs better content outside of comics and TV shows. Like, I'm talking about Batman, Spider-Man level stuff. Even Wolverine has Logan and is now getting a new video game. Yeah, I think Superman needs way more things, I know that video game developers are always, like terrified of the idea of making a Superman game because they think it's impossible, but, they haven't really given it a good, faithful try since 2006. And, with today's new, technology, I feel like they could definitely do it. They could do something. And they're all, afraid of losing money, but most of these game studios are, putting out flops anyway, so they're always losing money. Why not try, And most of the time, they're just canceling projects that we actually want to see, like the Wonder Woman game. So, are we really surprised that they're not doing anything with Superman? But yeah, Batman and Spider-Man have so many TV shows and animated movies and games and all this stuff, and Superman gets nothing. So, it's kind of depressing. I agree with you. Alright, Absolute Lemon says, might be hotter than the sun, but I think James Gunn's Superman should continue being good, but eventually I think Superman should turn evil for a bit, kinda like Injustice or Zack Snyder. I don't think it's possible to be all powerful and be all good. Alright, no offense to you, buddy, but I feel like you're projecting some religious views onto Superman, and I really don't like that. He's not Jesus, okay? As I said before, Superman is just supposed to represent what the ideal good person should be like, and we're supposed to look up to him. It doesn't have to be that deep. He's a fictional character, and I think we're all tired of seeing evil interpretations of Superman. There have been so many of them in the last decade, and I think we're all just kind of done, So, sorry. Alright, next up, Andre Paul 3483 says, George Newbern and Tim Daly should always be acknowledged the same way as Kevin Conroy. These two held the torch for being the longest running Superman actors too. I would agree with that. I mean, Kevin Conroy is the absolute GOAT when it came to, changing the game for his character. But, I feel like George Newbern and Tim Daly should definitely get more recognition. And another good example would actually have to be Christopher Daniel Barnes as Spider-Man, because they never talk about him, and he's not even in the Spider-Verse movies, but he completely just, redefined what Spider-Man is supposed to sound like. Crazy work. But yeah, I think I actually like Tim Daly more than George. I know that there's that, amazing speech he gives in JLU, but I think Tim Daly just has a better Superman voice. It's way more soothing, in my opinion.
I won't have vigilantism in my town.
You tried to kill Aquaman. Why?
Alright, last up, and I'm gonna butcher this one. Chin May Murthy 7549 says, super speed for Superman should operate more like a plane, where he has the capability to go very fast but can't think and react at that speed. First, to differentiate him from the Flash, and second, to build on the idea that he has to control himself so no one gets hurt. Yeah, I think I like this idea. Obviously Superman isn't as fast as the Flash, and I really don't think that his brain would, also operate at that kind of speed. Like the Flash, his whole body, everything about him is powered by the Speed Force. And he can perceive, events that happen, in less than an attosecond, which is like smaller than the smallest measurable length of time that we can observe as human beings, which is just absolutely insane. I don't think Superman should be capable of anything, like that. Like, I do think that he should be able to, react to bullets pretty quick. He's always catching bullets and stuff. That's pretty normal for Superman, but he should be nowhere near the level that Flash is on when it comes to, thinking at super speed. That would just be ridiculous.
You getting any of this?
Every fifth word, maybe.
Chris Grant 802 says, I know it's iconic, but I've never liked Superman's cape having his crest on it. It's gaudy and insists upon itself. It's not the worst thing ever, but it is excessive, the same way it would be if Batman's cape had a giant black and yellow bat logo plastered on it. Aside from one or two rare exceptions, I always prefer just a plain red cape. Now, I also prefer just the plain red cape, but I don't think it's excessive to have the yellow crest on it. Do people say that about Spider-Man because he has a back logo? No. If anything, his suit looks naked without it. And yeah, it would look really weird on Batman, but that's just because that's never been a thing. It's never been the standard, but I don't really care either way if Superman's cape has the crest or not, but I do prefer it plain. Okay, next up, Tommy Gugg says, might be a hot take, but I don't like when Superman is portrayed as being super muscular. I much prefer when he is portrayed less masculine, as I think it fits his personality more. Now, I think I half agree, because I do think that Superman should be masculine. This is Superman we're talking about, but I don't think that he should have as much defined musculature as Batman. I prefer when he has the big farm boy build, kind of like in Frank Quietly's art from All-Star Superman, or the way Tim Sale draws him in Superman for All Seasons. I think that's way better. Superman having this kind of build definitely helps him look more approachable. That's his goal at the end of the day. He wants people to trust him, and he doesn't need to look like a bodybuilder, but you should still be able to look at him and know, this is a tough guy, Superman should be big, but not chiseled. And as much as I love his art style, I really don't like how ripped Ed McGuinness makes Superman look. I love the black and red symbol on the suit here. I love the art style. He's just too damn big,
I don't know what the hell you feeding him, but he is too damn big!
Alright, next up, Tristan says, better tomorrow just fits what Superman stands for better than any other version of that quote. Now, obviously, he's talking about the classic truth, justice, and the American way quote that Superman's always saying.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
And recently, it's been changed to a better tomorrow. Now, I understand the weight that original phrase holds, especially today, but I think Superman represents what America is supposed to be. And I mean, this is something they explore in Captain America stories all the time. So while I understand the desire to change the phrase, I feel like we shouldn't shy away from it. And you can tell a really interesting story about Superman taking that phrase back and, having it mean what it was supposed to mean. So I like both versions of the quote, but I feel like backing down and changing it is kind of a cop-out when you should be challenging those ideas head on and really exploring what that means, I mean, just look at this art right here. Like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we need. Alright, next up, CassArt16 says, probably a hot take. I prefer Superman's glasses to be normal ones, and the reason why people can't tell him and Superman apart is because his stature and mannerisms differ. Now, over the years, there have been countless explanations as to why nobody can tell that Clark Kent is Superman, whether it be hypnotic glasses, or posture changes, or passive mind control. I don't mind any of them, but honestly, my favorite is just that people don't really expect Superman to have a day job, and also, celebrity lookalikes are a thing, People can just be like, oh, you kind of look like Superman. But they're not going to assume that Superman has a day job and lives in an apartment and is, kind of a loser. They're going to think that Superman is a god and lives up in a cloud castle or something. They're just not expecting it, When it comes to Superman's disguise, I don't really get the hate for the Clark Kent persona. Everyone always trashes on it, saying it's too unrealistic and it would never work. But the point is that nobody expects Superman to have a day job. They're not looking for him. I mean, if I was walking down the street and I saw somebody that kind of looked like Christian Bale, I might ask him if he's Christian Bale, and if he says no, I'm just gonna move on with my life. I'm not really gonna pressure him and be like, oh, are you sure? Are you lying? I don't think that that's something that people would do, Also, celebrity lookalikes are a thing. It's very common. And while I think that Clark would change his posture a little bit and maybe his voice a little bit, he wouldn't be pulling on this act to be a completely different person. I mean, he is Clark Kent. That is who he grew up as. He would just be himself.
But I am Clark. I need to be Clark. I'd go crazy if I had to be Superman all the time.
Alright, next up, Yuev the Frogman says, my hot take is that I don't think making religious allegories or using religious imagery in Superman media is that insane. I mean, I think interpreting Superman as a mythological godlike figure is a valid take, especially if he's being used as a symbol of certain ideas rather than a super complex individual per se. But I think it truly depends on execution, so he doesn't feel too aloof or something. Also, I think Superman embracing more of his alien side is cool, especially if they manage to blend it with an emotional human core amid the crazy sci-fi stuff. Now, my issue with the religious allegory stuff is never the fact that they compare Superman to Jesus, it's how they compare them. I mean, if you're a writer and you're going to make a connection between Superman and Jesus, do it between their shared altruism and their desire to help people. Don't compare their power. I mean, at the end of the day, Superman is very Christ-like. I mean, Jesus was just a chill dude who wanted to help people, and he loved everyone. That sounds a lot like Superman to me. The issue is when you compare them, and then you have Superman do things that he would never do, and in the process, you assassinate both of their characters. I mean, look at Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. I mean, he was comparing Superman to Jesus the whole movie. There is so much religious imagery there. And the movie ends with Superman destroying the entire city and killing the bad guy. So if you're going to compare the two, don't say that Superman is Jesus. That's not true. Superman's not a perfect individual. Just compare some of the characteristics that they share. Sorry if this got too religious, but this is a hot takes video, and this is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, so. Alright, next up, Tab says, Gunman is the worst superhero movie I have ever watched. Wasn't coming with bad expectations, even though I didn't like the last gun flicks, but hope in Superman being the exception still lingered. I genuinely don't remember a single time I was ever this miserable in a theater, not even on movies where I walked out midway. Really wish I could share happiness people have for it, but it isn't meant to be. Okay, I feel like this one's a bit dramatic. I mean, the worst superhero movie ever? Really? Are we being serious? Now, I understand if people don't like this movie, that's fine. We all don't have to like the same things, no one's forcing you to. But come on, really? The worst superhero movie ever made? And I think you did have bad expectations, you're just saying that, This movie's not perfect, it does have flaws, I will admit that. But there are way worse movies out there, let's be real. Alright, this take actually kind of ties into the last one. CIA says, Superman James Gunn is very mediocre just judging it from a story and film perspective. Some moments are downright contrived or stupid in my opinion. I really could write a 3-page essay about it, but it is what it is. Also, Gunn fans are rabbits. You say, hey, I actually don't like this movie, and you basically killed their dog. Now, like I said before, not everyone has to like that movie, that's fine. But the reason why you're probably getting such a visceral defense from Gunn fans is because your critiques always sound like the previous guy, where he's saying it's the worst superhero movie ever made, and you're only saying that just because it's not Henry Cavill, you know? I feel like everybody just needs to calm down. It's a movie, alright?
Whoa! Take it easy, sweetheart.
Alright, next up, Lord Vader says, there probably will not be a part 2, but my hot take is that not every street criminal should have kryptonite. Only Batman and maybe 1 to 2 others. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just outright ridiculous. I mean, kryptonite is supposed to be one of the most rare minerals on the planet because it comes from space. But in some comics, it's as common as a grain of sand, you know? Like, what are we doing here? Batman should have some. Lex Luthor should have some. Obviously, Metallo's heart is made out of the stuff. I feel like that's pretty much it, you know? And if any other villains are using kryptonite, it should be on very rare occasions and they should be supplied by Lex Luthor, you know? Now, I'm really interested in how the DCU is going to handle kryptonite because in the Superman movie, Lex explains how kryptonite has supposedly disappeared off the face of the earth. There's no more left. And that's why he has to use Metamorpho to create synthetic kryptonite. So, has James Gunn just eliminated kryptonite altogether? Or do some people have stockpiles somewhere? Is there actually a secret, mound in the ocean that we haven't discovered yet? Who knows? But I'm glad that they just didn't whip it out for no reason in that movie. They kind of had to come up with a more creative solution. I think it was pretty cool. I feel like you definitely need to come up with more creative ways to have villains be a threat to Superman. Alright, next up, Jay says, hot take, Superman shouldn't need to breathe. I think it's cooler when he doesn't need to use a mask to breathe underwater or in space like in the DCAU, especially when you have a scene of him charging up next to the sun or something akin to what happens in All-Star Superman. I do see room for an explanation regarding the necessity of oxygen for communication, but outside of that, it seems very new 52 level of power reduction for Superman. That white spacesuit he had was fire though. Now, I think the perfect explanation would actually be something kind of like the Viltrumites from Invincible, where they can just hold their breath for weeks. So that way Superman can travel to other planets, he can charge up next to the sun, he can do all of his space stuff without having an oxygen mask, but he would need one to communicate with other people. He can't talk in space. That was the whole reason why Mark Grayson had to use telepathy when talking with Alan the alien on the moon, if that makes sense. So Superman having a spacesuit for Justice League missions where he has to communicate with the other members of the League totally makes sense to me. I don't see any issue with that. And if you have an issue with the spacesuit, like some people think it looks ugly or too clunky, then just have him wear an oxygen mask, kind of like this. It's really not that hard. I mean, this all makes sense to me because how many times do we see Superman talking when he goes up to charge next to the sun? Never. He's always by himself, I don't know. I feel like this really is a non-issue. Alright, next up, Cameron says, my hot take, if you could even call it one, is that Tyler Hoechlin in Superman and Lois is a top 3 portrayal of Superman, if not top 2. Yes, I 100% agree. He may have had a rocky start in the Supergirl show, but damn, Tyler Hoechlin is so good in Superman and Lois. He just embodies the character of Superman in a way that not many other people do.
Here you go, friend.
Thanks. Cool costume.
Thanks. My mom made it for me.
They really just pulled off that super dad dynamic so well. He's just so good and friendly and dorky and kind of stupid, but I don't know, he's such a good Superman. And honestly, I think he has to be one of the best Clark Kents we've had so far because he perfectly meshes the Superman identity and his Clark Kent identity into one person, At that point in Clark's life, he doesn't really need to separate the two that much. He is Clark Kent, he is Superman, I don't know. He's just so good. If you haven't watched Superman and Lois by now, please go watch it. It's just a good time, It doesn't have the perfect visuals or anything, but it's pretty good for a CW show, I will say that. Alright, next up, Lucas says, I'm not fully against Superman having an evil phase. I also think most people have a darker side to them to some degree, but I think it's wholly untrue that everyone has some evil monster within them. and I definitely think trying to portray Clark Kent as having some evil monster in him is just fully misunderstanding the character. Okay, so for me, I am totally against Superman having an evil phase. That's stupid. That should only be reserved for alternate universe counterparts that Superman has to fight. But don't get me wrong, I mean, Superman does have a slightly darker side to him, and that would be his anger. Like, low-key, Superman has anger issues sometimes in the comics. Like, not too frequently, but there are moments where he just loses control of his emotions, and his friends have to kind of bring him back to reality. Kind of like this moment in World's Finest, or this one episode from the Justice League cartoon.
Kent, don't be a fool.
I think that's a much better way to add some edge to the character without just having him go through some kind of evil phase like the symbiote arc for Spider-Man. Alright, next up, Nant says, hot take, Lois Lane is much more of a fictional character than Clark Kent. It's not that hard to find someone who's kind and good for the sake of being good like Clark every day. However, it's extremely hard to find a journalist who has integrity and doesn't get bought by billionaires and politicians like Lois in this day and age. Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that classic, good old-fashioned journalism is just dead. It's gone. Just went. I mean, we don't really have genuine people pursuing the truth and trying to spread it with the world anymore. We just have everyone who's the same, and they're all paid for by the same people at the top, and they just exist to create division. That's it, you know? It's not real journalism anymore. And the news isn't trying to just inform you anymore. They're trying to elicit an emotional reaction from you so you keep supporting the side that the people at the top want you to. I mean, Lois Lane is a character who is constantly exposing the corrupt elite, and that's just not realistic, especially if you look at everything going on right now. You know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I actually agree with your take a lot, and the more that I think about it, it's actually super funny how Superman, a man who can fly and lift buildings, is far more realistic than Lois Lane. That's hilarious. Alright, next up, Nathan Spires says, not really a hot take, just my opinion. I think they should flesh out his weakness to magic more. I've only ever seen it touched on, but not explored very much or explained. Yeah, I've always been a bit confused on this too. I don't really think it's a weakness. It's just, you know, Superman is invulnerable to like physical damage, like bullets and stuff. And magic doesn't really fall under that category, so he's as vulnerable to it as anyone else would be. It's not that it's like a specific weakness just tailored to him, you know? Like, magic would affect Batman and Superman in the same way, because it's magic. In my opinion, the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show is overhated. It's genuinely a good show, and it just sucks that Spectacular Spider-Man was canceled because of it. Now, Ultimate Spider-Man is by no means my favorite Spider-Man show, not even in the top 3. But I don't think it's that bad, you know? Like, it's an unoffensive children's show. That's what it's supposed to be. And if anything, it kind of reminds me of Batman the Brave and the Bold with all the team-ups. You know, like, Spider-Man is constantly teaming up with countless characters from across the Marvel Universe, and it's a good introduction to those characters, you know? Like, I think that's a good thing. So, while I think Drake Bell is super annoying, I don't like his voice, and, like, some of the humor just doesn't really land, it's a kid Spider-Man show, you know? It's not that bad. And yeah, it does suck that Spectacular got canceled because of this, you know, with the Disney merger, but it is what it is. Okay, next up, Christian says, we should get some animated movie adaptations of iconic comics like DC did. Yeah, I agree, totally. And I mean, this is one area where DC has always been wiping the floor with Marvel. They just have always been putting out so many animated movies, and while not every single one of them has been top tier, I think they've been pretty consistent with being average to pretty good. But I mean, there are so many good Marvel stories that we could be pulling from for animated movies. We're just not. Like, we have a few. We have Planet Hulk and The Ultimates and Young Avengers and a few others, but we could be doing a lot more. Like, how many animated Spider-Man movies are there? I can't really think of any. And there are so many stories that we could be pulling from, you know, like Kraven's Last Hunt, The Death of Gwen Stacy, Secret Wars. We could be pulling from, I mean, we have Planet Hulk. Why not do a World War Hulk movie? That would be awesome. Like, the thing that really just baffles me about this is the lack of Spider-Man animated movies. Like, I can understand them not wanting to make a bunch of X-Men movies or Avengers movies, but Spider-Man is like the most popular superhero in the world. Why are you not taking advantage of that and just putting out tons of animated movies? There are so many storylines that you could be adapting. What the hell? Like, what's going on? But the funny thing is DC refuses to quit. Like, their latest animated universe, the Tomorrowverse or whatever people were calling it, that just ended. But they're still going. DC's coming out with a 2-part Nightfall movie. Like, Come on, like, is it that hard? Just put more movies out. You know, you have the money, Disney. Like, what are you doing? Instead, you just keep putting out these mid-ass Marvel shows. Like, come on. All right, next up, Brett the Best 3978 says, Marvel Comics should have a full reboot like Crisis. I mean, yeah, this is something that could be really good for Marvel Comics. I mean, DC's Crisis event just kind of streamlined the timeline. You know, it cut out some of the clutter, made everything nicer to look at, and all of these characters' histories were still intact, just everything was refreshed, if that makes sense. But even if something like this happened in Marvel Comics, I don't really care, you know? I would trade it all if they would just fix Spider-Man. Because the rest of the Marvel Universe may not get retconned that often, but Spider-Man does, over and over and over again. Like, nothing has been right since One More Day. I know, that was forever ago, we should just move on and shut up about One More Day, but like, come on, okay? Is Peter not allowed to grow up and progress and have a life and just do things differently? You know, no matter what he does, he will always be sent back to the Shadow Realm of being broke, single, and living with Aunt May. It doesn't matter, you know? Like, it doesn't matter what they do in all of these runs and storylines because we know that everything will just go back to the way it was. There's no point. Just let him get married, let him have kids, let one of his children take over as the new Spider-Man. Come on. It's what we all want. And it's not too late to fix this, all right? Just let Peter and MJ magically somehow remember their life before One More Day, and then they can just move on, okay? You don't have to erase the last 10 years of Spider-Man comics. Just let them remember and let them patch things up, please. I mean, I personally really love Richard Parker from the Ultimate Universe. Why don't we bring him into the main universe, you know, kind of, I don't know, speed things up a little bit. Maybe he can take over as the new Spider-Man. That would be really interesting. Also, where the hell is Mayday Parker? What are we doing here? Or if you were just hell-bent on him not being with MJ, just forget about her then. Like, we are so sick of this back and forth, this will they, won't they. It's been going on for decades, okay? Just have him be with MJ or have him be alone. Just choose something, please. We're just dangling this marriage above our heads like, oh, but look, now she's with Paul. Oh no, things aren't gonna work out between them. I don't care. Just choose something, you. All right, next up, Blessed by Rick says, my Marvel hot take. I think that Marvel should have done an Avengers movie before Doomsday, like Secret Invasion could have been an Avengers level type movie. I mainly say this because heading into Doomsday, there was no real team or lineup. Yeah, I agree with this. I mean, obviously, they needed to do something different after Endgame, and I think Secret Invasion could have been a really good Avengers movie, especially if the Skrulls were like, you know, infiltrating the team, like they were kind of teeing up and there was a bunch of betrayal and all these twists and stuff, but no, they just turned it into some boring-ass Marvel show on Disney+. I don't know, like, I just don't care about Doomsday. I know that it's most likely just going to be a bunch of cameos and nostalgia bait, so like, it just all seems so underwhelming to me. That's why I haven't really talked about it on this channel. I just don't care. All right, next up, Ruben Thorne says, in the MCU, Captain America and Black Widow should have been a couple, not Hulk and Black Widow. Yeah, I mean, what the hell was that? Like, I was watching The Winter Soldier, and the whole time I was like, oh yeah, okay, they're kind of teeing up a relationship here. That could be really interesting. And they have great chemistry. And then in Age of Ultron, out of nowhere, they have this whole Bruce Banner-Natasha subplot that just makes no sense, and they have no chemistry. I do not believe that these two characters would be attracted to each other. It makes no sense. We all hated it. No. Better yet, I mean, you could just pull from the comics and like have Black Widow have some kind of romantic entanglement with Bucky. Like, that would be even more interesting because they're both brainwashed super soldiers. Anything but this, please. All right, next up, Lizzie Vento says, Marvel should do a full reboot after Secret Wars. Not just a soft reboot, I'm talking like a full reset because the current MCU is too far gone to be saved, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, the MCU has been around since 2008. It has been a long time. I think it's time for something new. Plus, a lot of these actors are aging out of the roles. And like, I don't even care if they reboot Spider-Man, you know? We've had Tom Holland as Spider-Man since 2016. It's been long enough. We can have someone new if we want. Also, I made a video about my pitch for a Spider-Man reboot. You should go watch it. It's pretty good. Now, if they were to do this reboot, we don't need to see everyone's origins again. We could just get settled into a new universe, just kind of throw us in wherever. But recast all the characters, you know? It's definitely time for a change. All right, next up, Nifty Cringe Guy 5431 says, Tom Holland's Spider-Man after Homecoming feels like a shallow rendition of the character that molds into whatever the writers of each movie want him to be instead of a consistent Spider-Man/Peter to be invested in. Yes, I 100% agree with this, and this is the reason why I only really like Spider-Man Homecoming out of all the MCU Spider-Man movies. That movie set him up with a really good character arc. He finished off the movie rejecting the Iron Spider suit, rejecting the invitation to join the Avengers, and he was just like, no, I'm gonna keep being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, I'm gonna look out for the little guy. That was a great ending, and it really set up the next movie perfectly. And then in Infinity War, they're like, nah, he's gonna be the Iron Spider, he's gonna join the Avengers, go to space, all that. They just erased all that hard work, you know? And then all the other Spider-Man movies just ignore it too, so what's the point? He's just too different in every single installment. It's really hard to get invested in him as a character. Okay, next up, The Fishman 1969 says, Black Panther is one of the most well-rounded characters in Marvel. He works anywhere from street tier to a cosmic, science-based adventure. He fits in a magical story as well as a science one, and he's genuinely one of the most badass Marvel characters ever. Yeah, honestly, it's crazy how many different kinds of stories Black Panther can fit into. Like, he is a very versatile character. You know, like, they have all the magic stuff going on with their ancestors and the spirit plane, all the Lion King stuff. And then, you know, Wakanda is the most scientifically advanced race on the planet. And then, like, in some comics, they've gone cosmic before, and there's all this space stuff happening. It's crazy. Like, I was just reading the JMS Spider-Man run, and Spider-Man finds out that he's dying. So he goes to Wakanda, Black Panther's trying to cure him, he's got him hooked up to a machine, and then in the middle of all these scientific-based tests, he's like, hey, you want to eat this magic herb? This might cure you. It's like, what? You were just testing his DNA, and now you're giving him a magic plant. Like, that's just crazy. Black Panther's so cool. All right, next up, Adam X78 says, hot take, I hate how in Marvel, barely anybody has a secret identity. Yeah, like the only ones I could really think of are Spider-Man and Daredevil, and if anything, all the other heroes having public identities makes these two more special. Like, in the Civil War event when Spider-Man unmasks in front of the world, it wouldn't have been such a huge deal if there were also hundreds of other heroes unmasking, but no, most of them are already public, it was just him. So I think it makes him a little more special, you know? Alright, next up, Thomas says, Marvel/Disney needs to stop spending hundreds and millions of dollars on movies and make more lower budget films that don't need to make $1 billion to be profitable. Yes, agreed, 100%. It's just crazy. Like, I don't think all of these movies need those kind of budgets. Plus, I think Hollywood just launders money anyway, but that's a theory for another day. But when I see a movie having such a huge, overinflated budget, like hundreds of millions of dollars, all it tells me is that you don't have the talent to make this movie good, and you're just throwing money at it, hoping that you get a good product at the end. Newsflash, you won't. Your movie's still gonna be crap, no matter how much money you throw at it, alright? Now, I understand the desire to go bigger and better with each movie, but you don't really need to do that financially. If anything, these movies should be getting cheaper with each installment. I mean, you can reuse different costumes and set pieces and lots and all these different assets, but no, they keep getting more and more expensive, and it makes no sense. Just lower the budgets, focus more on talent, maybe get more creative with the marketing so you're not paying Meta like $1 million a day for their ads. Just be more fiscal. Live life like the rest of us. Alright, next up, Bronco5591 says, MCU Iron Man should have ended at Iron Man 3. Avengers 2 and Civil War, he causes more harm than good. And when he has the Infinity Stones that can do anything, he chooses genocide. Okay, like, I think using the term genocide is a little harsh. I mean, the Avengers kill people all the time, and we cheer them on. But Iron Man uses the Infinity Gauntlet to wipe out an entire army of evil aliens under the control of Thanos. And now you have a problem? Come on. Now, I love Iron Man 3. I am not a hater of that movie, I know a lot of people are, but I love it. But I also don't think that Iron Man's story should have ended after that movie. There was a lot of good character progression that happened after that movie. You just want to erase that? Okay, next up, Anything Center says, Hawkeye's new look with the sunglasses is worse than his big cowl. Yeah, that look is so boring, and it's obviously inspired by Jeremy Renner, which is just more proof that MCU brand synergy ruins everything it touches. The purple outfit is silly, but it also looks sick, and he's a comic book character. Like, who cares? But like, I just find it to be so pathetic when comic books are afraid of themselves and they have to modernize everything to fit in with what the movies are doing. Otherwise, the general audience will think they're too silly. It's just lame. Like, grow some balls. Come on. All right, next take. Hobie Brown needs more attention as the Prowler, whether he's a villain or anti-hero. No hate to Aaron Davis's version. Yeah, I don't think this is ever happening, at least not in any meaningful way outside of the comics. Aaron Davis's Prowler is just way too popular and way too important to Miles' character, and he's super popular, so why would they confuse the general audience and bring in this other Prowler? It doesn't really make sense. I would love to see it. I like Hobie Brown's Prowler, but it's never gonna happen, and it's because the great MCU brand synergy gods won't allow it, and only because they're under the command of their god, the casual moviegoer. Alright, next up, Joel Clark says, this probably isn't a super hot take, but right now in comics, DC is absolutely kicking Marvel's ass and taking their lunch money. It's bad. This shouldn't be a debate, and I really hope it's not, because obviously DC is cooking Marvel in comic books right now. I mean, we have DCKO, the current Batman run, we got the Absolute Universe. The only thing that Marvel has right now that's really popular is the Ultimate Universe, and they're ending it already. Like, going out with a whimper, I guess. Next up, we got Perry7595, and they say, I really like Iron Man 3. I know the plot twist isn't great since it underutilizes his greatest comic book antagonist, but we get to see that Tony is more than just Iron Man, making gadgets in the shed, improvising to take down the bad guys, and overall, he gets the most character development in this movie, between his relationship with Pepper, the kid, his past, and who he wants to be going forward. Like I said before, I really like this movie. I know a lot of people hate it, but I love it. That might be a hot take, but I don't care. Iron Man 3 is just so good, and it does so many good things for Tony's character. Plus, the best thing about this movie is it debunks this stupid-ass scene from Ironheart.
And he contributed immensely to the film, so I won't roast Tony Stark off rip. But I don't have $1 billion.
Now, a lot of people might use this scene as like some kind of sick burn comeback.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave! With a box of scraps!
But this movie actually works way better as a rebuttal. Tony Stark is just so smart in this movie. He is able to take down an entire base of enemies with a shopping cart from Home Depot. Like, you know, he's the GOAT. Plus, come on, like, I know it's a hype aura moment, but having all of the Iron Man suits fly in for the final battle, come on, that's just epic. You have to admit it. Alright, now this next person dropped a bunch of hot takes, but I'm just gonna focus on one. Because what the hell? Prime Animation 3000 says, don't kill Gwen Stacy and give Gwen Norman aka Green Goblin babies. Now that is a hot take. Obviously, he is referencing the Sins Past arc from the JMS run of Spider-Man. Like, whoa, like, that came out of nowhere. I was reading that arc and this crap happened and I was like, wait, whoa. Like, I thought I was missing pages in the book. I had to figure out if that's actually what was happening. Comes out of nowhere. Anyways, what happens is Peter starts receiving letters from Gwen years after her death. Like, he's already married to MJ at this point. And he's trying to figure out where they're coming from, and he eventually finds out that Gwen's children are involved. Now, these children are the result of an affair between Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy. And because Norman Osborn had the Green Goblin serum, the children had hyper-accelerated aging, and so they're now adults. It's later revealed that Norman had been brainwashing the kids their entire lives, and now they hate Spider-Man and think that he's responsible for their mother's death. Just complete insanity. Also, MJ knew about this the whole time and she didn't tell Peter? Like, it was just the weirdest story. Okay, so let me get this straight. You want Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, to have sexual relations with his greatest enemy's lover, who also happens to be the same age as his son. Okay. No. No. I gotta give you credit though. Super hot take. Probably the hottest I have ever had in the series. You got some balls there, buddy. That was a good one. Alright, next up, Ninja Go J Fan says, Marvel Rivals is the greatest Marvel game ever. Now, I actually happen to play quite a bit of Rivals. I actually love that game. I am a regular Grandmaster player, though I do main Moon Knight, so a lot of people would say that I'm cheating. Either way, I would be inclined to agree with you. But no, I think the game has lost the vision. You know, it was supposed to be a celebration of the Marvel Universe, but now it's just Gooner rivals, and all they care about are putting out like 3 Gooner skins a week. What are we doing? Like, I might actually have to stop playing the game here pretty soon. Like, every time my wife looks over to see what I'm playing, she sees Sue Storm with her ass out or Psylocke wearing a thong, and like, I can't keep doing this. When is it gonna stop? You know, they refuse to give us a classic Spider-Man suit, but sure, they're gonna give us a million Invisible Woman skins where she's half naked. Now yes, I know that a lot of these characters are drawn to look that way in the comic books, but like, this is different. They know what they're doing. Also, just a side note, at the time of this recording, Deadpool was released today in the game, and I know that the game is going to be insufferable to play, so I'm just not going to touch it for like a month and wait for everything to cool down. Gemothy83 says, 1. Batman using batarangs never made sense to me, as it seems extremely irresponsible. No one has ever found one fingerprint on a batarang. Does Robin have to pick them all up? 2. Every Batman movie should at least imply his parents' death. While it may be repetitive, new audiences still see these movies and don't even know who Bruce Wayne is. 3. Older Batman is boring unless it's with Terry. Then I like him for a little bit, but he should ultimately die for Terry to fully take over. Alright, let's address these. Alright, the first one. Batman wears gloves. You know, he's not going to be leaving fingerprints on batarangs. That doesn't really make sense. And then, you know, the places where he's using the batarangs, most of them end up becoming crime scenes, and the police likely gather them up and bring them in for evidence. And my headcanon is that Gordon takes them from the evidence room and just gives them back to Batman. You know, it's simple, but I think it's kind of funny. Also, this is Bruce Wayne we're talking about, multi-billionaire. I'm sure he can just make more, you know. Now, I may not have agreed with the first one, but I do agree with the second one. I do think that every single Batman movie should at least imply the Wayne murder in Crime Alley. I mean, we don't need a full 5-minute slow-mo scene like Zack Snyder did in Batman v Superman, but it should be mentioned, you know? Because when you don't, that's how we end up with situations like the MCU Spider-Man, where they go years without even bringing up Uncle Ben, and then by the time that they do, it's too late, you know? And I mean, the Waynes are essential to Gotham's history, and there are so many stories that, you know, are about their legacy and their impact on the city, you know, decades after their death. So I feel like it's really hard to not include them. You don't have to do a flashback scene every time, but they have to be mentioned, obviously. And for the third take, I also agree. I'm not a huge fan of an older Batman. I'm not a huge fan of the Dark Knight Returns story. I like it the way that it plays out in Batman Beyond, where, you know, he's kind of forced to quit being Batman after he pulls a gun on some random thugs, you know, because he realizes that he's no longer physically able to perform his duties as Batman. Plus, you know, if he's Batman all the way until he's like 60, there's not a huge time gap between him and Terry, and then I feel like Batman's, you know, triumphant return in Neo Gotham doesn't have as much impact if they're like, oh, well, we just saw this older Batman, you know, like 10 years ago, so, all right. It has a way bigger impact if there's a huge time gap, like it's, you know, been like 40 years since there was a Batman. That just makes sense to me, but whatever. 40 years might be too much. Okay, next up, Matanui says, don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think Batman's suit looks better when 1, it's not blue, it's just an eyesore whenever they make it blue, as it's too bright. 2, he gets rid of those dumbass trunks. Why you gotta be coming after the trunks, man, alright? They're just cool, you know? Not everything has to be hyper-realistic or practical. I think sometimes superheroes just wear things because they look cool and they kind of make the look of the costume better, you know? Like, does Superman need a cape? No, it's not really practical. But he wears one because it looks awesome. And I think Batman would, you know, do similar things. I mean, his whole thing is about theatrics and fear, so if his suit was completely practical, no bells and whistles, would he have ears? Probably not. Like, I can understand the function with the cape, so there's that. Like, he wouldn't have a crazy color scheme, he'd just probably make the suit all black, which is what the Nolan trilogy was going for, but I don't agree with you on the trunks. I like them. I know it's super subjective, but whatever. Now, with the blue, I do agree with you that sometimes it's too bright, and I don't really like that. I'm not a huge fan of the blue used on the Neil Adams suit, but dude, I love a dark blue on a Batman suit. Like, come on. It just looks so good. Okay, next up, Chewy Buka? I don't know. Hot take. Batman needs to smile and laugh more. I hate the what's worse, a Spider-Man who goes silent or a Batman who smiles? Batman should smile. Did these people never see JLU? Yeah, I don't really like that hypothetical question either. You always see that posed on social media, and I think it's kind of stupid because Batman does smile quite frequently, and obviously a Spider-Man who's not talking is way scarier. But like, Batman's a human being, you know? He still has emotions, he still finds things funny, he still experiences amusement.
You didn't think I'd come here without reinforcements, did you?
Wish I'd thought of that. Oh wait, I did.
Just go watch something other than the Dark Knight trilogy, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Wait, you're not just some guy in a bat costume, are you?
Alright, next up, Leonardo23 says, here's my hot take. Batman as a public member of the Justice League defeats the whole urban legend thing. I think he should still be a founding member, but kinda unofficial to keep that urban legend around him, if you know what I mean.
Know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what you were saying.
I do know what you mean, but like, Batman's status as a vigilante will ebb and flow. It'll change throughout the years. So obviously he should start out as an urban legend for, you know, those year one, Long Halloween, those kind of stories. But I think Batman should join the Justice League around his 5th or, you know, 7th year as a crime fighter. So that way there's plenty of time for the people of Gotham to figure out, oh, maybe Batman's real, you know? He's not going to be an urban legend forever. So while I do really like that aspect of the character, it's not one that's going to be there forever, you know? Like, the people of Gotham are eventually going to figure out that Batman exists. You know, news reports, there's going to be verified accounts. He's probably going to show up on the news, you know, with, like in Arkham Origins, you know, he's fighting Bane and Joker on the roof of the Gotham Royal Hotel, and there's a news chopper recording the whole thing, and they're like, oh, shoot, it's Batman, you know?
After years of on and off unconfirmed sightings with no recorded video, we've seen the Bat twice tonight and caught him on film. Could this be the turning of a new leaf for the mysterious vigilante?
Those things are bound to happen, so by the time the Justice League rolls around, I'm pretty sure Batman will be a well-known figure in the world, you know? Alright, next up, Rebel Friend 1977 says, I think there should be more villain redemption in Batman stories to prove Bruce's philosophy right once in a while. Obviously not characters like the Joker, but I do want to see some more rehabilitation going on. Yeah, I think I would agree with this. I don't think that the Joker should be redeemed ever, because he needs to make Batman look like a hypocrite, you know, in order for characters like Red Hood to exist and for them to make sense, you know? But definitely, Batman should be able to rehabilitate and redeem some of his villains. A good example of that would probably be Mr. Freeze, you know? I feel like Mr. Freeze has like 1 or 2 good stories, and then him being a villain is kind of redundant. So I feel like they have to eventually kind of figure out what's going on with Nora, either kill her off, cure her, let Victor live a normal life, you know? And that's actually something that I did with Mr. Freeze in a story that I wrote a while ago. I'll put the link in the description if you want to read it. It's pretty good, I think. Anyway, yeah, obviously there's some villains that wouldn't work for. I think Mad Hatter, Joker, maybe Bane, I don't know. But there's definitely some where you could, you know, let them have a happy ending.
Bruce. Good old Bruce. Always there. You never give up on me.
Alright, on to the next one. The Explodinator 3007, that's a sick username. Harley Quinn isn't interesting without the Joker. If she ends up leaving him, she just needs to quietly retire into a normal life and not be put in the spotlight again. Yeah, I really don't like the direction that DC has taken with Harley Quinn. You know, I feel like they've been giving her too much redemption and making her seem like almost a hero, you know? In some iterations, she's joining the Bat family, she's hanging out with Batman. I don't think that would happen at all, you know? I also don't think that she should be stuck with the Joker forever. She should go to prison, okay? And I'm sure Batman would agree with that too. And you might say, oh, well, she's just a victim, you know, of the Joker. She didn't know any better. Yes, she did, all right? She has a PhD. She is an extremely intelligent individual. She knew what she was doing, all right? So she should still be held responsible for all of the crimes that she committed while she was with the Joker. She should go to prison, you know, and serve her time. It makes the most sense, you know, either that or she quietly retires and is just out of the spotlight forever. I don't know. After Harley leaves the Joker, it doesn't make sense for her to do anything else, because if she's truly redeemed, then she would realize that her taking up this persona of Harley Quinn does more harm than it does good, and she would just quit. So, I don't know. I think it's stupid. They are doing some terrible things with her. Alright, next up, the owner of the IC says, the Court of Owls sucks. The native curse on Gotham and Solomon Grundy / Deacon Blackfire are way more compelling and underused than them. Now, I can agree that I would like to see Solomon Grundy used more in Batman stuff, and not just like, some big monster for him to fight. I want to hear about the lore. However, I do really like the Court of Owls. I thought they were very interesting, and I loved that original story written by Scott Snyder. I did not like the ending, though. I didn't like the whole Thomas Wayne Jr. Batman brother thing. I thought that was stupid, and they kind of just added that onto the end because there wasn't like a real, final boss to the story, so they're like, oh, we gotta throw one in real quick. But as a concept, I do really like the Court of Owls. Alright, next up, Omega Red 92 says, my hot take is that Arkham Origins has the best origin of Batman and Joker's relationship. I'm talking about their relationship after the plot twist. Yeah, I think I could agree with this. Obviously, most people were pretty disappointed after the Black Mask Joker plot twist, because Black Mask is super underused in a ton of Batman stories, so people were excited to see more of him, but then they're like, oh, it's Joker. It was Joker the whole time. So a little disappointed, but after that plot twist, the story was absolutely peak. And I really like how, until that moment where Batman saves Joker didn't really even care about Batman. He just kind of saw him as an irritation and someone who would get in the way of his plans, so that's why he put out the hit on Batman. But, after Batman goes out of his way and risks his own life to save Joker becomes super obsessed with him. And that is really interesting. That's way more compelling than just, oh, he's, immediately infatuated with Batman after the Ace Chemicals incident. Like, I feel like it would take more time for, Joker to become obsessed with Batman. It wouldn't just be on that one instance. Obviously it did affect him, but he really became obsessed after Batman saved his life. Because Joker was confused. Like, he didn't understand why Batman would do that.
Now why would you do that? Newsflash! I'm the one who's trying to kill you!
Alright, next up, Clinton Analog Horror says, Batman should have the white eyes. When he doesn't have the white eyes, he looks less obscured and more man than Bat. I think it really depends, because you have interpretations like Robert Pattinson's Batman, where not having the white eyes is a huge service to the character, because you can really see the emotion in his eyes while he's acting. However, if you're doing a more, fantastical, mythical Batman, you have to have the white eyes, okay? He's got to look like a creature of the night. He's got to have that super menacing silhouette while he's standing in the, in the shadowed alley. You know what I'm talking about. But, I really see what you mean with the more man than Bat, because if you look at a bat suit kind of like Batman Earth 1, he just looks like a dude wearing a Halloween costume, He doesn't look like Batman. And I know that that's the point of that story, but it's just not a look that I really vibe with, and I love the white eyes. I would love to see it in live action. I think it's an essential for a more fantastical Batman. Alright, next up, I've always thought Two-Face is too boring a villain for the popularity he has. I understand what he represents, but the interesting thing about the character is seeing Harvey Dent's transition into a psychopath. Two-Face himself doesn't amount to much more than a lesser Joker. Besides, there's the problem that once Harvey appears in the story, you already know his fate, making it hard to be interested in his character as both a reader and a writer, since many stories just rush through the transition to get rid of him. Now, I can definitely agree with this. However, I don't think it's just exclusive to Two-Face. I feel like a lot of Batman villains suffer from this problem, because, with a lot of these villains, the stories have a lot of focus on their origin. It's not really what they do when they're villains, it's how they got there. The transition from upstanding citizen to Gotham supervillain. Mr. Freeze, Man-Bat, Two-Face, Poison Ivy. And it's really easy to just say, oh, well, they just need more interesting stories. But it's really hard to make new stories and, new arcs that are, just as interesting, if not more, than their origins. Like, you're not going to beat the Heart of Ice Mr. Freeze story. You're just not. And, like, what are you going to do with Man-Bat after that initial story where he turns into the Bat, kills his wife, whatever? Like, writers have tried shoving him in with the League of Assassins. I don't really think that works. Poison Ivy, her character is really nothing more than just Harley's girlfriend at this point. Like, she doesn't really do things on her own. So, I think it's just rough, We got WonderFig6664. He says, okay, my hot take is that there needs to be more team-ups in the Rogues Gallery. I'm tired of them only working alone, and I think it would fix a lot of character growth problems by exploring and expanding different dynamics. I think this is a pretty good idea. I mean, Batman villains do team up quite often in the comics, but, you know, a lot of them are so varied in their motivations and, you know, like the reasons why they do what they do. Like, for instance, a lot of the villains just absolutely hate Joker and want nothing to do with him. They don't want to hang out with him. They don't want to plan things with him because he's too much of a wild card. So I do think it would be cool if there was kind of like a Sinister Six, you know, for Batman, kind of like Spider-Man, but, you know, you'd have to pick the right characters because a lot of them just don't really work well together. All right, next up, Little Tay-Tay says, the next time Bane is in a live-action movie, he has to be Hispanic, and he has to wear the Lucha Libre mask. No exceptions. That is who he is, and his portrayal in The Dark Knight Rises was so insulting to his character. Yeah, I don't know why Christopher Nolan decided to make Bane, you know, a white guy with a weird mask and a vest. Like, that just goes against everything that Bane is supposed to be. I don't know. And also, why would you choose Tom Hardy, okay? The guy is like, what, 5'9"? He's short. He's not a very tall guy. And he's not that menacing, okay? Bane is supposed to be this huge, hulking figure that challenges Bruce, not only physically, but mentally. And I didn't really get that vibe from Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. You know, I would love to see a more comic book accurate Hispanic wrestler looking Bane. I think that's more intimidating, honestly. You know, the trench coat wasn't really doing it for me. All right, next one on the list, we got Particle PP. Sorry. All right, he says, I hate the Hellbat armor, and he says, the Batman Who Laughs is the corniest villain ever. And I have to agree. I think that the Hellbat armor is kind of stupid. Like, I understand Batman having a few Iron Man type armors for special situations, but like, the Hellbat armor is just so over the top for no reason. And then the Batman Who Laughs, he reminds me of this guy right here.
Clock strikes 12. Midnight arrives. Cock your guns and sharpen your knives.
Like, he's just, you know, he's not tough, okay? I think it's kind of lame. Okay, next on the list, IsWorks420 says, with some tweaking, Hush could be one of the best Batman villains. Number 2, the Court of Owls is better than the League of Assassins. 3, Hugo Strange, Poison Ivy, and Killer Moth need more attention. And 4, Harley Quinn should be written more serious and not treated like DC's Deadpool. All right, let's tackle these. So number 1, I do think that Hush could be better with, you know, a bunch of tweaking, but I don't think he would be one of the best villains. Like, him as a villain is very dependent on, you know, the history of Bruce and Thomas Elliot kind of landing. And since they never really explore that outside of the story where Hush is the main villain, it just doesn't have the same impact that it could. So I just think that Hush is always going to be a weaker villain because of that. And then Court of Owls is better than League of Assassins. I think I would agree with that, at least because the Court of Owls hasn't been done as much, and it always feels more fresh and new, and it just hasn't been done to death. You know, the League of Assassins isn't everything, and anytime there's some kind of like big conspiracy, half the time they're behind it and like, oh, they're here to cleanse Gotham. And like, yeah, you know, it's cool, but I think it's just a little overused. And then Hugo Strange is definitely a super underrated villain. I think he needs a lot more attention. He should be in a lot more things. I would really like if he was a side antagonist in a live action Batman movie. That would be really cool. And I think Poison Ivy gets the appropriate amount of attention. Killer Moth definitely needs some more. You know, he's been shoved into that C-list, D-list villain territory, but, you know, he has a lot more lore than some of those other guys, and so he'd be more interesting to see in a movie. I don't know, it could be cool. And then, yeah, Harley Quinn has gotten really annoying lately, and especially in that Harley Quinn show. Like, I haven't seen all of it, but I just really don't like the way they portray her there, you know? Like, Harley Quinn is not supposed to be all there. Like, she is an insane person, you know? Like, I get it, she leaves the Joker and she starts a new life and all that, but like, she's still not right in the head, and Batman would not, you know, be on her side. Batman would still want to bring her in because she has committed numerous huge crimes. Like, of course he wants to rehabilitate her, but like, he's not just gonna forgive everything. Like, come on, what are we doing? All right, next up, Cool Dude Gaming says, hot take, I think Batman Beyond's suit defeats the purpose of Batman. Terry relies too heavily on the suit and gets absolutely fried whenever his suit doesn't work. I think he should have become another Robin for a short time so he could learn more about being Batman and eventually earning the suit. Okay, you're going after my boy here, okay? And I'm not gonna take that lightly, so I'm gonna defend my man Terry McGinnis, all right? he should not be a Robin. That defeats the whole purpose of him being special as Batman, because most of the other Robins were ushered into the role by Bruce Wayne. They didn't really know what they were getting into, they didn't really want it, and eventually most of them came to regret it. But Terry McGinnis chose to be Batman, all right? He broke into the Batcave, he took the suit, he made the choice. And then even after he realized all the crap that being Batman brings, he still chooses to be Batman because he feels like he needs to make up for past sins.
I had no right to force this life on you or anyone else.
Hey, I was the one who broke in and swiped the suit, remember? I was a pretty bad kid once. The kind of punk you wouldn't have wasted a second punch on back in the day. I'm trying to make up for past sins. Every time I put on that suit, it's my chance to help people who are in trouble. It's a chance to look like a worthwhile human being again. In my eyes, if no one else's, it's what I want, Bruce.
That's what makes Terry special as Batman. And your point about the suit, there are countless episodes where the theme is...
Sometimes I ask myself, is Batman just the suit, or is he the man inside?
And, Terry functions without the suit. There's the episode where, the old grandpa guy AI takes over the Batsuit and goes on a rampage. So Terry has to go himself and stop the suit, and he's just wearing a Nightwing mask, and he's just using his, intuition and his brains, and he defeats it. Because he's Batman, not the suit, I think that that's a misconception where, everyone's like, oh, Terry's just like Iron Man, where it's just the suit, and it's not really him. No. Terry McGinnis is Batman. Let's not get that twisted. And, just because we disagree, that doesn't mean that I think you're stupid or anything. It's just, I'm very passionate about Batman Beyond. That is my guy. He is my favorite. So I will defend him. All right, next up, Obi-Wan Jacoby 840 says, my probably not that hot take is that Harley shouldn't be getting so much redemption. Yeah, I get she was a victim and is a very popular character, but she is still complicit in a lot of heinous crimes. Maybe some kind of reform is possible, but helping the Bat family is a stretch. I like her better when she's paired up with Ivy. Yeah, as I said before, Batman would not be letting her into the Bat family. He would still want her to go to prison and be rehabilitated, okay? Just because Harley left the Joker, that does not mean that she is a good person. She is still a criminal. She has killed people. She's not good, okay? Her being with Ivy makes a lot more sense because, Ivy can help support her journey, from escaping the Joker, but she's not going to be joining the Bat family. I think the concept of villains joining the Bat family is stupid. I don't think Bruce would do that, and the Bat family is already a little too bloated, so it just doesn't make sense. Alright, Cool Peter M says, I like the Bat symbol having the gold outline like the Rebirth suit. Yes, okay, I feel like if you're gonna do the yellow on the Bat suit, you gotta do the outline, because most of the time the oval just looks kind of stupid. I like it on the BTAS suit because it's timeless, it kind of supports that Art Deco vibe, but the oval just looks a little silly most of the time, and the logic also is dumb, well, he has yellow there because it's supposed to attract gunfire to where the armor's the strongest. Okay, isn't the whole point to not get shot? Why would you make yourself more visible? Batman can dodge bullets and he hides in the shadows. Why would he want a big yellow spot on him? If you're gonna do it for aesthetic purposes, do the gold trim. It just looks a lot better. All right, Luke 33 CA 48 says, my hot take is that I think the character Red Robin should be replaced with Tim Drake taking up the mantle of Red X. In my opinion, Tim Drake is by far the most qualified in the role of Robin. So much so that I think he's the only one of the Robins truly capable of taking up the mantle of Batman if Bruce couldn't anymore. But that being said, I don't think Red Robin is the right direction for the character. It feels like a cop-out for the best Robin. I think since Red X is already a Batman, Bat family adjacent character, he is the perfect mantle for Tim to take up when he goes off on his own. Yeah, okay, I think Red Robin is the dumbest identity ever. Actually, that's not true. Drake was the dumbest identity ever. I don't know why they pulled that crap. But anyway, Tim Drake needs a new identity so that Damian can be Robin and Tim Drake can have more individuality. So Red X would be a really good idea. Or my buddy and I came up with another identity for Tim Drake named Cypher. And he would have a green and black costume. It would kind of still look like Robin, but he would more focus on his technological abilities and kind of be like an oracle that's out in the field, if that makes sense. I think that would be way better than Red Robin or Drake, but Red X is really good too. Alright, Mr. Meister 127 says, my hot take, Batman would be so much better if he had a progression from going from human to something beyond, even superhuman, more like a vampire character, especially after he meets Man-Bat. Also, I wish Man-Bat would join the family, or at least a series that would bring back something from the Vampire Batman comics. I mean, I don't like the idea of villains joining the Bat family, but I already mentioned that earlier. But going back to the powers thing, I think Batman having some kind of, superpowers could be something that would be interesting to explore. It might take away from his character a bit, but after he joins the Justice League, maybe he gets, he creates some kind of shadow tech that lets him actually travel in the shadows and teleport. I think that would be really cool, and it would add to the supernatural element of his character. But I could also see a lot of people hating that, so he could go either way. All right, Hari Krishnan DH1KM says, can you pitch a Batman story? Now, I'm sure you're probably talking about Bruce Wayne, but I did create a Terry McGinnis story, which you can read by going to the link in the description. It's called Batman Beyond Fallen Sun, and I'm very proud of it, and I think it's really good, and I want you to read it, so please go read it. Thank you. Darth Shard 8967 says, Cape and Cowl Cafe sounds a bit like Carl from Family Guy.
Hey Brian, you see that magazine cover right there? See who's on it?
Yeah, that's Jessica Alba.
Yeah, you want to know a secret, buddy?
What?
I would do her.
I don't really hear it. Moving on. I Have Feet says, my hot take is that Red Robin's New 52 design is my favorite design of any superhero. Okay, respectfully, you've got to be rage baiting. I think this is the worst Robin design ever. I really hate the metal wings. He's not Falcon. He's a Robin, okay? No disrespect to your opinion, all right? You're entitled to it, but I really think that this suit is ass. I'm sorry. Jedmain6681 says, I want to see Ninja Myth Batman that disappears into the night and can just appear anywhere as if he can teleport. He shouldn't teleport. But why can't Green Lantern think he does? I'm getting really sick of the combat boots and the high-tech look. Just have him be mysterious, and I also like the urban legend thing, which is hard if he's pulling up in a tank or a fighter jet. He should still be techie, but not visibly so. I really like this idea because, Batman is supposed to be an urban myth. He's just this creature of the night. Everyone's terrified of him. A lot of people don't even know if Batman is real. And so having him kind of function with more under the radar tech and appear more as a bat monster really helps that idea, especially in his early days, in Batman Year One, when Detective Flash is describing Batman attacking him, he sees the batarangs and he thinks they're claws, if your batarangs look like they do in the Batman Arkham series, you can't really mistake them for claws because they got a giant blue LED light in the middle,
It came out of the night sky, wings 30 feet across. The bullet passed right through the creature, like it wasn't even there. Something flew from its hand, little dark things, paralyzed everyone. It singled me out. It had claws. I'm telling you, it isn't human.
Gentlemen. So, good take. All right, next up, Brava Michael 7437 says, Robins are stupid. After first Robin death, Batman should have stopped making Robins, but no, does it again. At least Batman should secretly turn them into cyborgs. Bat family is too big. Batman works best when it's only him, Gordon, Alfred, and Max. No. I mean, I understand why people like Batman by himself, but the Bat family is kind of essential. But turning the Robins into cyborgs, that is a wild take. I have not heard that one before. That's kind of crazy. All right, and lastly, Ray V8K says, honestly, I'd prefer it if the Joker was way more camp and goofy rather than sawing my face off society edgelord. Yeah, I do think Joker has gone a little too far in the edgelord direction, especially with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie. Society. But, yeah, I think Joker needs to be a little more goofy, and some of his crimes should be less extreme. Killing Jason Todd and paralyzing Barbara Gordon should kind of be the worst of it, because Joker's not supposed to be irredeemable. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of Batman refusing to kill him and constantly trying to rehabilitate him, because he does believe that Joker can be helped. It would just take a lot of effort. And so if Joker is worse than Hitler, the worst guy ever, why would Batman want to rehabilitate him? Does that make sense? VECH08 says, my hot take is that the Spider-Verse sucks as an event. I 100% agree with you, okay? I think that Spider-Man works best as a street-level hero, and, when the stakes aren't really that high. but he's just not that character anymore. I think the Spider-Verse has kind of ruined him a little bit. I mean, you started off with the 90s cartoon, you had that little Spider-Verse episode, then you got Shattered Dimensions, the game, and those appearances were very spread out. And then, you know, you had the Spider-Verse run, and things kind of snowballed from there, okay? The Spider-Verse was appearing in everything, and we have all these spider people flying around. I just don't like it. I prefer a street-level Spider-Man story. And No Way Home just kind of, you know, was the nail in the coffin where Marvel realized, oh, you know, we can just make more money with all this Spider-Verse stuff. It's essentially just a giant cow where we can milk cameos out of it and make infinite money. All right, next up, Doobie Man says, I think Spider-Man shouldn't be as averse to killing as people make him out to be, around the same level as Superman. Also, smaller lenses look so much better. I do think that the lenses look better when they're smaller, but addressing the first point, I don't think that Spider-Man should be like Batman when it comes to the no-kill rule, because Batman is mentally ill, he has a compulsive need to preserve life. Spider-Man just doesn't have that mental block, but I do think that Spider-Man, for the most part, does try his best to not kill anyone, because he sees that as part of his, you know, with great responsibility code, okay? Like, he doesn't really see himself as
judge, jury, executioner!
Who gets to pick and choose who lives and dies. You know, he tries his best to keep everyone alive, and he doesn't like to cross that line. But if he needs to, I don't think he's gonna, you know, have a mental breakdown over it. I mean, he might, but not on the same level that Batman would. So I kind of agree with this. All right, on to the next one. The Spider-Crafter 8547 says, Peter as Spider-Man shouldn't start mentoring another Spider person or hero until around 5 years or after 5 years into his superhero career. I agree with this, okay? First off, I really hate all the extra spider people running around. I see it the same way as like a super huge bat family. It's just unnecessary and it's cluttered, okay? I think it should just be Peter, Miles, then Riley, okay? I don't even really like Kane that much. I know some of you guys do, I'm sorry. But, you know, I agree with this, okay? Spider-Man, Peter Parker, should operate as a solo hero for a long time, okay? I don't like it when other people are taking the spotlight away from him. And also, he's not really a team-up guy outside of the Fantastic Four, okay? He thinks that the Avengers are, you know, douchebags who just make a giant mess.
Thanks for swinging by, Spider-Man. You Avenger guys are really great at making a mess.
And they're pretentious and they're rich, and he doesn't really like them that much in, you know, the older comics. I don't know how it is nowadays. I haven't really read a lot of Spider-Man comics because they're, you know, they're really bad. But anyway, yeah, so in the Insomniac universe, it's a perfect example. You know, Peter was Spider-Man for 8 years before Miles Morales was even introduced. I think that that's great, okay? And, you know, it just makes it more believable that Peter could teach someone because he has 8 years of experience and wisdom to share. Yeah, this is a good take. All right, this one might be a pretty hot take. Gouliand9441, sorry if I mispronounced that, says, the mantle thing or the idea that anyone can wear the mask can sometimes take away from Spider-Man as a character. Not every hero needs to be a mantle to pass down. I agree. Okay? I think when people say, anyone can wear the mask, I think they take it a little too literally. The meaning behind that phrase is that everyone can see themselves in Spider-Man. He is relatable. And it's mostly because, you know, of his personal life, but also his costume. It is a faceless, full body costume, okay? Anyone of any race, any age, any size can see themselves in Spider-Man because of the way that he is designed, okay? That does not mean that everyone has the willpower and strength and mental fortitude to be Spider-Man. Are we forgetting that he's a literal genius and designed web shooters? Not anyone can do that, okay? I think they take that phrase too literally. Not everyone can be Spider-Man, and it definitely does take away from the character a little bit because Spider-Man is an exceptional human being with amazing willpower, a strong moral compass, and just the highest intellect ever. Okay, that is not something that the average person can achieve. So I agree with this. Good take, bro. All right, Alfie Maynard, HZ8VB says, I will admit that it has its flaws, but I genuinely enjoyed Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I also enjoyed it, okay? I think it's just a fun little Elseworld story. It doesn't really need to be anything else, and it's a kid's show, okay? Like, they didn't do anything that, you know, really boils my blood or anything. Like, it wasn't pissing me off. It's just a Spider-Man cartoon, and it was pretty fun. I liked it. All right, this is probably going to be the hottest take of the video, but Darth Vader 11912 says, Tobey Maguire is the worst Spider-Man by a long shot. it looks like people are finally catching on. Yes, Tobey Maguire is the worst live-action Spider-Man in my opinion, but don't get me wrong. I still love his movies. You know, they are masterpieces for their time. Sam Raimi is an excellent director. The writing is pretty good. But Tobey Maguire just gives a lifeless performance, and he lacks the charm, wittiness, charisma, and sarcasm that it takes to be Spider-Man, okay?
Are you in or are you out?
It's you who's out, Gobby. Out of your mind.
We sure showed him.
What do you mean, we?
Oh.
And his Peter isn't any better, okay? Peter isn't, you know, like some weirdo freak, okay? He may be a little bit of a nerd, and he might have been a social outcast in his first few issues of his original run, but like, oh my gosh, this guy is such a loser. And that's just not what Peter is, okay? Like, in his first few issues, he is a loser, okay? But the more that he is Spider-Man, the more his confidence goes up, and the more that his actual personality and his Spider-Man personality merge into one, and he becomes a more complete individual. It is a story about a boy growing up into a man through the identity of Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man helps him grow up. Tobey Maguire just doesn't really deliver with that. And yes, Spider-Man 2 does nail the relatable struggles of life aspect of the character, but the thing is, none of that is thanks to Tobey Maguire's performance. It is all thanks to the writing and the script. It has nothing to do with how Tobey is delivering his lines, how he's acting. He is just so lifeless. He is like a mannequin wearing a Spider-Man costume. I'm getting a little heated on this because I think we are all very blinded by nostalgia when it comes to a lot of these things. And I really think that Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man is one of them. All right, on to the next one. Anything Center says Homecoming is a top 4 Spider-Man movie. I think I agree with this because Spider-Man Homecoming has aged incredibly well, but also it's a pretty grounded story. Now, I don't like Spider-Man always being tied to big Avengers characters, and I know that it's that way because of the deal that Sony and Marvel made, and it's stupid. And all of Spider-Man's appearances in the MCU are huge, universe-ending threats, but I think that Homecoming is as grounded as they could have made it, okay? And I like it, you know? I didn't like it when it first came out because I was still in denial that Andrew Garfield wasn't Spider-Man anymore. And, you know, I was like 15 or 16, okay? I was just an edgy teenager who just hated anything new. So I hated Tom Holland, but looking back, he didn't really do that bad of a job. He was pretty good. Way better Peter than Tobey. Probably not as good of a Spider-Man as Andrew Garfield, but he did pretty good. But I really think that the story of Homecoming was very refreshing because it focused a lot more on the high school aspect of the character. Now, I do think that Spider-Man is stuck in high school too much nowadays. But, you know, they actually let us see Peter's life in high school, because usually in like the Tobey and Andrew movies, he's in high school for like a few scenes and then, oh, he's graduated. And then the rest of the movie is just about Spider-Man. This movie struck more of a balance, and it's something that I really admire about it. All right, the next hot take. Mr. Theme Song says, Null could have been a saga-level villain if Sony weren't greedy bastards. I don't think that they're greedy. I mean, obviously they are. It's a big corporation, you know, whatever. They're all greedy. I think that they're just stupid, okay? Why would you make a Spider-Man cinematic universe and not include Spider-Man? Are you dense? Okay, nobody's gonna go to the theater to watch Madam Web. Nobody goes to the theater to watch a Spider-Man villain. They want to see Spider-Man, okay? Morbius, Kraven the Hunter, Venom, and yes, a Venom story can work without Spider-Man, but not a Venom origin story. Spider-Man is essential to Venom's origin. They're tied together. You can't remove Spider-Man from that. So I think Sony's just stupid. They make horrible financial decisions, and they're dumb. And I don't like them. And they're stupid. And they're dumb. Be Real 5298 says, compared to other comic book films we've gotten lately, Spider-Man 3 truly isn't that bad and isn't deserving to have ended the Raimiverse. Yeah, I can agree with this. I don't think that Spider-Man 3 is that bad, you know, looking back. And it's mostly because, you know, that movie doesn't have 5 cameos a minute and, you know, is shoving a multiverse crap in your face. It's a Spider-Man movie, okay? I don't know why it's so hard to just get a regular old Spider-Man movie. Come on, guys, it's not that hard. I have high hopes for Brand New Day because supposedly it's supposed to be a street level story, but you know, the Hulk's gonna be in it, and it makes me kind of worried. But yeah, Spider-Man 3 wasn't that bad. All right, Trev the Goat 12 says, Spider-Man should have a new love interest, get rid of Mary Jane, have him marry a new woman. Yes. Okay, I don't think I've disagreed with a single take in this video so far, but I don't like Mary Jane. I used to, but too many writers have taken her and done their own things with her and just completely ruined her, okay? Listen to me. Insomniac, she is not Lois Lane, okay? She's not supposed to be a reporter. She is a party girl who hides her pain through a happy-go-lucky, extroverted personality, okay? I know you wanted to give her something to do in the story, but you stripped her of the depth that makes her special. And don't even get me started on the Raimi movies. I mean, in those movies, MJ is for the streets, okay? She is just hopping from guy to guy, picking the man with the most social status at the time, whether it be Harry Osborn, John Jameson, Spider-Man. I mean, she left a dude at the altar to go be with Peter, but only after he revealed that he was Spider-Man. She didn't care about him until he was Spider-Man. She is just the worst. It is just the worst character assassination I think I have ever seen. MJ used to be something truly special, but she is forever ruined. Let's see someone new. All right, this one kind of ties into the last one. Forrest Cooper says, here's kind of a hot take. Black Cat is one of the best love interests for Spider-Man. Yes, yes, yes. I think we all love Black Cat. And every time she shows up, it's just fresh and it feels new. And Spider-Man's not bogged down by all the crap that MJ throws in him, okay? I think that it could be a really interesting story if Spider-Man is actually able to redeem Black Cat and they live a happy life together, okay? She doesn't need to go back to crime every single time. She can evolve as a character. She's kind of stuck in this loop, kind of like the Lizard, where it just keeps playing the same story over and over again. Spider-Man trusts her, then she breaks his trust, and she's a criminal again, and she's stealing things. No, you don't have to live like that, okay? We can have more. We deserve more. Spider-Man deserves more. Give him Black Cat, have them get married, have little weird spider children. It would be nice. I would like to see that. All right, on to the next one. Was Ifum says, Spider-Man could use a sidekick / friend in the comics, not a different type of Spider-Man though. I don't know. I mean, that maybe could have worked back when he was rich and had Parker Industries, but he doesn't have time for a sidekick. I mean, he barely has time for Miles, and Miles isn't even a sidekick. He's just like a partner. They just exchange, troll roots and stuff. I don't really think that would work. And Peter would also, I don't know. He would, no, I don't see this working. I'm sorry. All right, here's one I actually disagree with. August Hillbilly says, I think Andrew's Spidey suit is completely overrated, Toby's is the best, and Tom's No Way Home final swing suit is second. Now, I agree with you on some of it, and just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I think you're an idiot, okay? We all got our opinions. It's not a big deal. But, the No Way Home suit is pretty good, but at the end of the day, it's a CG model, and a pretty awkward one at that, okay? It looks like he's wearing a vacuum-sealed bag. And, if it was a practical suit and we actually got to see it for more than 5 seconds, I might like it more. Kind of like the Brand New Day suit. That suit's perfect, but it's practical. It's got wrinkles, creases. It looks like a real tangible, thing that you can touch and wear. The No Way Home suit just isn't that, and so I can't really praise it that much. Now, I really don't like Tobey Maguire's design, okay? I think the raised webbing is kind of stupid. It looks chunky and weird. It makes him look a little bigger than he's supposed to be. And I really just can't get behind the angular lenses, like the triangle shape. It doesn't really scream friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It looks like he's gonna kill me. And he probably will. And are we being real here? Andrew's suit is the best. I think that both of them are so good. Obviously, the second one is peak Spider-Man. I have that at number 2 on my list, just under the Brand New Day suit, but I mean, how can you hate that nice shade of freaking satin red? How can you hate those lenses? They're big and buggy and awesome, and it's just so good. I don't know. I love that suit. I'm a little biased. All right, next up, Sick Dude YT says, Spider-Man No Way Home is not good. It's only fan service. I think some parts of it are good. Okay, I think some of the main story beats are pretty enjoyable, but it is full of fan service. It's like 80% fan service, okay? There's not a single original villain in that movie. It's all old ones. And then, the 3 Spider-Men, it was fun to see, but, when you watch this movie at home, it's very apparent that it was designed for huge, packed theaters. I mean, you have moments like the one where Andrew Garfield shows up in the portal and he's just standing there breathing, staring at the camera for a solid 6 seconds. Nothing's happening. But, the people who made the movie know that people are going to be cheering and clapping there, so they leave that space. I don't think that you should design movies, around those moments. I think that you should create a movie with the intention of making it timeless. You know, I don't know. It's not really good when you rewatch it, okay? It was amazing in the theaters. I had a great time. I was losing my mind. But, you know, watching it at home, it's like, you know? And it's mostly just because of the fan service and all of the weird theater moments that are designed for people to be literally having seizures in their seats over the return of the Spider-Man. It's overrated. All right, and the last one. Legends in the Making says, I think the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man is the best artistic design. I see where you're coming from, but there's always just been something that's been a little off-putting to me about it. You know, it seems a little creepy. I don't know, maybe it's the proportions, maybe it's the messy webbing, I don't know. I've always liked John Romita Sr. the best. I think his design is just classic and timeless, but also I know he doesn't really draw for Spider-Man that often, but I love the way that Dan Mora draws Spider-Man. I know he usually works for DC, but I think he should do some work with Spider-Man more. Also, I don't remember his name on the top of my head, but the guy who draws for the current Ultimate Spider-Man run, his art is pretty much perfect. I mean, I love it, but I do think that Todd McFarlane is just a little bit overrated. I'm sorry. We all love Batman. I mean, that's probably why you clicked on this video and why you're watching, and that's probably why you're gonna end up subscribing to this channel. But, you know, I'm convinced that some people don't like Batman because there are a lot of people who have the most brain-dead opinions on Batman and just, you know, they're just displaying to the whole world that they have absolutely no idea what the character is all about and how he functions. So today we're gonna be going over some of the worst ones that I have seen on the internet. So let's go. Okay, so the first one, you know, people say, Batman should kill people and he should use guns. Like, come on. That is the fastest way to tell me that you know nothing about the character. Not killing people is an essential characteristic of Batman, and it's been that way for the longest time, okay? And I know what some of you edgelords are gonna say, but Batman killed people in 1939. Yeah, okay, he killed people for less than a year in some of his first issues, but the thing is, back in the day, the Comics Code Authority was introduced, and it implemented some new rules that forced a lot of comic book creators to change up the way they do things. They were strong-armed into changing a lot of the dark themes that those stories had. A lot of horror comics and detective comics were just completely abolished. But for Batman, that meant getting a brighter blue costume. Robin was introduced as a lighthearted sidekick. He got rid of the guns, he stopped killing people, and the stories got more goofy and campy and just kid-friendly. Now, there may be people that don't agree with that change, but, you know, it's been that way since 1940, okay? You can't really argue with, like, 80 plus years of history because you like the 8 months where he happened to kill people. It just doesn't make any sense. Batman doesn't kill people. And the other thing about that, you know, you may not agree with him not killing people. You may think like, oh, Batman should kill the Joker because he's preventing more deaths. But that's part of his character, you know? Batman isn't necessarily right. And, you know, that's the whole point of the Under the Red Hood story. Jason comes back to criticize his no-kill rule and tell Batman that he's wrong.
Bruce, I forgive you for not saving me. But why? Why on God's earth? Is he still alive?
You know, nobody's saying that Batman is right for not killing the Joker, okay? Batman is mentally ill. That is the reason why he cannot bring himself to take a life.
He didn't have to die.
What?
He didn't have to die.
You're crazy. You're absolutely insane.
If someone can be saved, I have to try.
You do, don't you? It's a compulsion. You and your goddamn code.
That's what makes him interesting, okay? If he just killed people, there wouldn't be any stories, you know? It would just be over. And that's no fun, okay? Batman doesn't kill. Moving on. All right, the next horrible take that I always hear is, Batman is a bad father because he has Robins. Now, while some Robins do regret the life that they led with Batman,
I always wanted, expected to grow up and become him. And the hero bit, I'm still all in. But that thing inside of him, the thing that drives him to sacrifice everything for the sake of his mission, that's not me. I don't want to be the Batman anymore.
I think overall, Batman created a net positive for his children, okay? They always, you know, bring up Jason Todd dying, and yeah, that's tragic and horrific, and it really made Batman think twice about bringing in sidekicks. But the thing is, him having Robins did a lot of good for those kids, okay?
You keep thinking, if only I'd done something differently. If only I could have warned them. But there isn't anything you could have done. There isn't anything either of us could have done.
Does the hurt ever go away?
I wish I could say yes. But it will get better in time. For you. That I promise.
Batman considers Dick Grayson to be his greatest success. And, you know, while he kind of messed up with Jason Todd, I think he did a great job with Tim. And then Damian. Think about what Damian could have turned out like if Batman wasn't there to influence him for the better. Damian was in the League of Assassins, okay? He would have eventually grown up to take over as the, you know, Demon's Head. And you could have just wiped out the entire Earth of anyone that they consider unworthy. You know, saying that Batman is a bad father is a huge stretch, okay? He may not be the perfect father, but he did do his best, and I think he did a pretty good job for the most part. And, I mean, if we're being honest, Batman only went out of his way to take one Robin, you know, under his wing. Dick Grayson, or he approached him after he saw his parents die. He took him under his wing, he trained him, you know, turned him into a force for good. But the others, you know, Bruce wasn't entirely responsible for, you know, the choice every time. I mean, Jason Todd was caught stealing the wheels off the Batmobile, and, you know, Bruce could have turned him in or brought him to an orphanage, but he knew that he would have ended up on the street the next day either way, so his hands were kind of tied, and he decided to try to, you know, turn Jason into a better person and give him a brighter future than, you know, the one he was destined for. And then Tim Drake approached Batman, okay? After Jason Todd died, Batman swore off having sidekicks until Tim Drake figured out who Batman and Nightwing were, and Tim approached Bruce. And Bruce was reluctant, he said no a few times, but then he eventually broke down, gave him a chance. And then Damian Wayne was literally dropped on Batman's doorstep. And Damian is not a normal kid, okay? He was trained by the League of Assassins, and he was molded into a killer, you know? He learned how to fight and kill people before he learned how to read. What's Batman supposed to do with that, okay? He had a moral obligation as his blood father to take him in and try to teach him how to be a better person and not end up like a psycho murderer, like he would have. Like, what are we talking about here? Batman is not a terrible father. He tries his best. Like, the people who claim that Batman is the worst father ever, I'm convinced that the only Batman comic they've ever read is All-Star Batman and Robin, which is by far the worst Batman story I think I have ever read in my entire life. It is 100% turbo-ass garbage loser fan fiction. Okay, and the worst Batman opinion that I have ever seen, and I see this one way too much. That being, Batman is just a rich fascist who beats up poor people, and he should stop beating up the poor people and give money to the city and fix all their problems. You're just telling me that you don't know anything about Batman at all? Like, you probably don't even really like the character that much. You're just an edgelord with a Twitter account and you want attention. You know, I see this all the time. No, Batman is not a rich fascist who beats up poor people, okay? He is probably one of the most kind-hearted and morally good characters in fiction, period. I mean, that's why he doesn't kill all of his villains. He believes in rehabilitation, and he wants to help them. It doesn't really sound like a fascist to me. Now, to address the point where they're like, oh, you should stop beating up all the people and give money to the city. Giving money to Gotham isn't gonna do a damn thing, alright? The city is so broken and corrupt that giving money to the city would actually just make the problem worse. For example, in The Batman, it's revealed at the end of the movie that Carmine Falcone had been running the city for 20 years. And it didn't matter who the mayor was. He controlled the police, the crime, he had all the politicians in his pocket, he owned everything.
You think this goddamn election matters? Falcone's mayor. He's been the mayor for the last 20 years.
So do you really think that running for mayor or being a politician or philanthropy in a city like that is really gonna help? No, the money's just gonna get circulated through that corrupt system, it's gonna go to all the bad guys, and nobody wins, you know? So, in a city like that, dressing up like a bat and beating up criminals is the only way to help. Alright, now, let's not get it twisted. Okay, Bruce Wayne does an insane amount to help the city with his money and his vast pool of resources. You know, he's constantly holding fundraising campaigns, and he's trying to help out the best politicians and the best cops, and he's, you know, building orphanages and rebuilding city infrastructure, and, you know, he's constantly just trying to do all that he can to help his city. But, you know, being Bruce Wayne isn't enough. You have to dress up as Batman and beat up the criminals. You have to be a symbol, okay? That was the whole point of this scene for Batman Begins.
People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting.
You know, corrupt government can kill a politician. They can get rid of a really good mayor. But you can't kill an idea, a symbol, and that's what Batman is. He starts out as an urban legend. People don't know if he's real, but the criminals know that he's real, and he's out there, and he's gonna get them. You know, Bruce Wayne can't do that. Like, the people who have these kind of opinions, I feel like they only say it because Batman is rich, okay? Like in our world, the real world, the majority of billionaires are evil, okay? You have that kind of money, you're not gonna be a great person. And I think that Batman as a character is a critique of those kinds of people, okay? Batman is a billionaire, but he is also the ideal example of what a rich person should be like. Selfless, helping people, putting others before themselves. So, you know, he is this perfect critique of, you know, the elite in our society. And some people still feel the need to just say that, oh, he's a fascist because he's rich.
Batman's a fascist.
Let's say this is the biggest Batman fan out there. Batman is a fascist. He is. And Batman is also a terrorist.
You don't understand the character, okay? Just put the keyboard down, stop typing, get off Twitter, go read a comic book, all right?
I would say, you know, in the Frank Miller comic book that I reference, you know, he kills all the time. You know, he kills all the time, right?
Batman should have a happy ending where he finally abandons the cowl. I do not agree with this. I don't think Batman should have like a happy ending or a bad ending. I like it how it is in the Batman Beyond cartoon where he just continues to be Batman until he is so old that he is forced to quit. Like in that scene in the first episode where he's forced to reach for the gun while he's trying to save the hostage. I think that is just something that Batman would do. He would push himself to the very limit until he just absolutely cannot be Batman anymore physically.
Sit this one out. I can handle Freeze. Maybe it's time to pass the torch.
I'll pass the torch when the mission's over.
I honestly prefer the stories where Batman is the lone wolf. Alone, no help, no aid. This is stupid, okay? Batman has countless allies. I mean, he works with Commissioner Gordon all the time. That's always interesting to see. I mean, there's a reason why everyone loves Robin so much. I mean, there's a reason that he is there. Robin is there to remind Batman that he fights for hope and he fights for the people. He doesn't fight just to dish out vengeance and, you know, this is a stupid take. My favorite argument against killing the Joker is if you justify it because Joker is undeniably the worst criminal in the city, so just this once, then how do you stick to the code when the city decides Two-Face or Penguin is the new worst criminal in the city, and they're protesting Batman for refusing to make that decision twice? Better not cross the line to begin with. I like when this is what Batman tells himself. Like that scene in Under the Red Hood where Batman's like,
if I allow myself to go down into that place, I'll never come back.
That's just what Batman tells himself, but it's not the reality of how he acts and how he thinks and how he operates. Batman is extremely mentally ill, and the trauma that he experienced as a child is preventing him from crossing that line, making that decision. He can't. And it's more of a character flaw. That's why Jason works so well in that story, because he's pointing out that flaw. He's like, Batman, you need to cross that line because you're not making sense anymore. Why is Joker still running around? I kind of agree with this, but I like this argument more when that's what Batman tells himself. How he's like, oh, like if I kill one person, I'll just keep killing. I don't think that's what would happen. He's not just gonna start killing people left and right if he kills the Joker. That doesn't make any sense. But he would tell himself that. Bruce Wayne is not the mask. Batman is a persona that he implements to do good at night while his real identity improves the world during the day. I don't think either of them is the mask, okay? Because Bruce Wayne is not the playboy running around, hooking up with chicks. And then Batman is not his true self. And I know that people are going to rebut this hot take with that one comic panel where Batman has his hand on the lasso of truth. And, they're like, give up your, tell us your real name. He's like, I'm Batman. Like, that makes sense. But I think his real, true self is the 8-year-old boy that saw his parents get gunned down. But that version of himself is something that Batman protects and guards so aggressively that it rarely comes out. And both Batman and Bruce Wayne are there to protect that version of himself. I think they're both the mask. Bruce should be the only Batman. I don't like the idea of him retiring and people taking up the mantle. It feels really counterintuitive for the point of Batman, which is that he's not a good guy. He's very obviously not perfectly sane, and he doesn't want other people to end up like him. The Dark Knight Returns is the most overrated Batman comic book ever. I 100% agree with this. This is not a hot take. Everyone treats that storyline like it's gospel, like it's canon, when it should be treated like an Elseworlds story, which it is. The worst thing about this story is what Zack Snyder did with it. He got his grubby little hands all over it, and he used it to make some of the most dumb decisions in his movies. He took a look at this panel where Batman's holding a rifle, and he's like, oh, my Batman's gonna use guns, and he's gonna kill people. But if he would have just flipped the page, he would have seen this next panel where Batman snaps the gun in half and says, this is the weapon of cowards. I'm convinced he didn't even read the book, but he cites it as his main inspiration for his version of Batman. Pure lunacy. I think the Bat family has gotten too big. At this point, Batman should retire since he basically has his own Justice League running around Gotham. This is not a hot take. I think the Bat family should just be Batman, Alfred, Dick, Jason, Barbara, Tim, Damian. That's it. Anyone extra that you want to have should just be in stories where they team up with the Bat family sometimes. They're not official members of the Bat family. I like it when the Bat family feels like a family. It's not an organized team like the Justice League. And the best way to do that is to limit the numbers. Okay, all these extra characters like Batwoman, Signal, Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, Spoiler, Batwing, they should not be staples in the Bat family. They should not be there all the time. It just makes it feel so cluttered and very CW-like, like you're watching a CW show and they're adding new characters every other episode. I don't like it. Keep the Bat family relatively small, please. The Tumbler was an awful Batmobile, and the Batmobile as a tank-like vehicle is a horrible idea, as well as ugly as sin. They are completely correct. The Tumbler is ugly. All Bat tanks are ugly. I think the perfect Batmobile is just a sleek, souped-up muscle car, like the BTAS Batmobile, or the Robert Pattinson one, or the Michael Keaton one. You don't gotta make it too complicated. You don't have to make it too complicated. And, look at what Batman carries on his person on a day-to-day basis. He wears his costume with his belt, some smoke bombs, and some batarangs. Like, he doesn't have an Iron Man war suit. He's not walking around with the most advanced technology, even though he very well could. So why would his Batmobile be a war machine when it doesn't need to be? He's a character that likes to kind of stay under the radar, so why would he be driving a tank? It just doesn't make any sense. Bruce being trained by Ra's al Ghul should be standard in the mythos. It's by far the most natural way for them to meet. I agree with this, partially. I think that the League of Assassins should be one of the stops that Bruce makes on his journey while training. But what makes Ra's al Ghul so interesting is he has such an infatuation with Batman. Batman's pretty much the only man that this guy respects. He calls him detective. And the reason why is because he wants Batman to be his heir, to take over as the head of the demon after Ra's dies. And the best way to set this up is if they meet while Bruce is training. That's the perfect opportunity for Ra's al Ghul to become, so enamored by Batman and this guy is crazy. He could take over for me. Miller's All-Star Batman and Robin and The Dark Knight Strikes Again are great reads. I'm going to ignore that second book that he mentions. Let's focus on the first one. This guy is either rage baiting or he genuinely believes this, in which case we need to take away his internet. All-Star Batman and Robin is the worst Batman story ever written. Now, let me lay this out for you, okay? All-Star Batman and Robin retells Dick Grayson's origin story and adds a few things. It starts out with the Flying Graysons dying as normal, but instead of Bruce Wayne adopting Dick Grayson and taking him under his wing, Batman kidnaps him from the circus. He then takes him, not to Wayne Manor, but to the Batcave. He throws him in the cave, and when Dick Grayson complains about being hungry, Batman goes, "There's rats." What are we doing? This is a great read to you? Okay. But it's not just that. There's also a scene where Batman and Robin interrogate Green Lantern. Now, this is back in the day when Green Lantern's weakness was still the color yellow. So they painted themselves yellow, they painted the room yellow, they're serving lemonade. It's kind of funny. But, you know, they're interrogating Green Lantern for something. I don't even remember. I haven't read this book since high school because it was so dumb. But anyway, Robin shatters Green Lantern's collarbone, to which Batman responds by calling him a little snot and then throwing him through the wall. I don't even know what to say about this book. This is the worst thing I have ever seen. And if that wasn't enough, there was also a scene where Batman and Black Canary have intercourse among a pile of burning corpses. At least I think they're burning corpses. I don't remember. There's a bunch of dead people. They killed everyone. Let's just take a moment to be grateful that Zack Snyder did not read this book before he made his movie, because if he did, Batman v Superman could have been completely different. It could have been way worse. Great read. I really enjoyed Batman Forever. It was just a fun movie. I agree with this. Batman Forever wasn't that bad, and Val Kilmer is an extremely underrated Bruce Wayne. But yeah, this isn't really a hot take. Wonder Bat. That is all. Yeah, that's all you gotta say. I really liked this idea, and I was really frustrated when they would tease it in those old DCAU cartoons, and then they never did anything with it, because it just makes so much sense, and especially in that universe, their chemistry was great. But also, it's a nice twist on the usual status quo for Batman with his relationships, because usually he's afraid for anyone to get too close to him, because he's all like, if my enemies ever found out, they'd be in danger. And yeah, that makes sense, but Wonder Woman's the most, she's one of the most powerful beings on the planet, so what are Batman's villains gonna do? Is Joker gonna kidnap Wonder Woman? Okay, sure. Batman 2022 was the best one so far. That is not crazy to say. In fact, here's my hot take. The Batman is better than The Dark Knight. I know, I'm sorry. Attack me in the comments if you want. It's fine with me that Batfleck killed people. Just go read The Punisher. Go watch The Punisher show. You don't like Batman, just admit it. All right, you're not cool, you're not tough. Bruce should have raised a private army instead of going alone as Batman, and he should have run for mayor or something. He could have cleared Gotham so much easily. That Bat Bull is just meh. I'm trying to decide if this person has a brain or not. The whole reason why Batman operates as a vigilante is because you can only really fix the corrupted system of Gotham from outside of the system. If you were inside the system, you are more likely to become corrupted yourself. I mean, it doesn't matter who's mayor. Bruce Wayne should just run for mayor. That doesn't matter. If you watch The Batman, they explained that Carmine Falcone was the mayor for, the last forever, despite not actually being the mayor. He was just controlling everybody. So why would it be any different if Bruce Wayne was mayor? Because then he'd be restricted to the confines of the law, and he would be forced to follow that corrupted system. His best love interest is Talia. This is a brain-dead take. Talia is a terrible person. She assaulted Bruce, forced a child upon him, and then when that child disappointed her because he chose his father, she cloned him, and then that clone killed her son. No, she is not a good love interest. She is a terrorist. Arkham Knight is peak, and so is Arkham Jason. No, Arkham Knight is peak, gameplay-wise. The story is ass. Jason makes no sense. Okay, the whole reason why Jason is mad in the comics is because the Joker's still running around. He's like, Batman, why didn't you kill the Joker? He's still running around. What's going on? But in the Arkham universe, Jason comes back and Joker is dead. Not only that, but the whole world thinks that Batman killed him. So why is Jason upset? And Jason didn't even die in this universe. He just escaped. This makes no sense. Alright, that's going to be it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this extremely long compilation, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button. And drop in the comments down below your superhero hot takes. Let's talk about it. But yeah, until next time, I'll see you guys later.